at 8. Tonight's agenda, we're going to start with voting of minutes, and before we do that, I want to make an announcement that the Water Quality Management Team Committee was scheduled to appear here this evening, and they're not. And that's been moved to indefinitely postponed. So if anybody was here or planning to come here, it has been postponed. Back to the minutes, 8/15/2012. We have,
You read them?
I wasn't here. Sorry. Was I absent?
You can have them.
I was here?
You were here.
Oh, God. Why do I not have that one?
so we can table that if no one has read those.
I've read them.
Okay. And how do you find them to be?
I'm satisfied there are minor correction in wording, but that'll be fine.
And
I'll second it.
that's a
You want
motion.
to indicate what the wording correction is and then pass it on to her?
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, please. The correction.
The correction on page 5, referencing to myself, the words were, or should read, "You are creating a solution to meet our regulations, and dredging may be more disturbing than a water dock." That's it.
That's it. If you would make a notation on that, and we'll pass it over to Susan. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes for that meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention, because I was not here.
Okay, one abstention. It carries. Now we're on to request to continue under a notice of intent. The first is Vacation Resorts International, 134 Minot Road. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 26th.
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion on the table for continuance to September 26th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is Michael George, 45 Dusty Miller Road. Jen?
Again, Mr. Chairman, the applicant's representative is requesting a continuance until September 26th.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is to continue to September 26th. All
Is
those
there
in favor?
One question.
Aye.
So,
What was the purpose of the request?
They're doing some plan revisions and addressing some concerns from the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Can I ask what the quorum is on that project?
Tommy, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Michelle, and Ed.
Okay.
You, as you told me, you won't be here on the 19th.
And the 26th,
Oh, you're on the.
and October 3rd.
No meeting on the 3rd.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was only the 19th, Ed. The 26th as well?
correct.
So that would give us how many on the quorum without Ed?
5.
Okay.
so,
But you gotta keep an eye on it.
And that's vacation board, so I'm
all right, we have the motion, and I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next on the agenda, continued requests for determination of applicability. First up is Victor Pop, 133 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair the existing decks, handrails, connect and expand the decks, and to construct an egress for the house.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project and made multiple site visits and spoken with the applicant. They also wanted to add a vista pruning component to that, and I approved that, and Mark has been discussing that with them as well. So to add in their request, it would also include the vista pruning. So at this point, we're recommending a -2 under the bylaw, -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed, and the vista pruning would obviously be in accordance with your regulations.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion from the board?
I have to make a comment, that is, I think it's a good idea that every house have an egress.
Absolutely. And any discussion from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Jumping down the agenda, request for hearing under a notice of intent. I get to read my little cheat sheet. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up is Peter Bennett, 344 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole, Mass, for permission to demolish an accessory structure garage and to construct an enlarged structure with attached screen porch, bulkhead, to remove trees, install mitigation plantings, Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, parking area, utilities, remove pavement, regrade, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
The only comment I would like to make before I invite the discussion we had this afternoon, follow up with that.
Yes.
Okay, and just, Mr. Chairman, that had to concern a modification in the filing fee that was submitted for this project. So we'll be asking for a larger filing fee. And I'll wait for any other additional comments after Mr. Borselli's presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Vasselli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Peter Bennett, who is the property owner. This lot, known as 344 Quistit Ave, is a single-family lot with a single-family dwelling and a detached accessory structure. The accessory structure currently is used on the first floor as a storage area. It wants to be a garage, but you can't park in it because, like a lot of garages, there's things in the way that people store. So it's basically used for that purpose on the first floor, and on the second floor there is one bedroom, sort of overflow bedroom for the primary dwelling. The existing primary structures is located here. There's a dock. The lot has frontage on Quistit Harbor. We have located all of the trees and wetland resources within your jurisdiction. There is a non-eroding coastal bank located in this position. There's also land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is also shown on the plan, as well as the associated 50-foot no disturbance zone A, and then the 50-foot outer buffer zone B. So the actual 50-foot outer buffer zone B is also the line of jurisdiction for your review. And we're proposing, just for information purposes, we're showing you that we're putting a new septic leaching field up under the driveway outside 100 feet from the top of the coastal bank. The project is basically to demolish the existing accessory structure and rebuild a new accessory structure that is continues to have the same general use. It'll be a playroom on the first floor for grandchildren, and then there'd be a bedroom on the second story. There's a small screen porch. It's sort of an overflow space, if you will, for extended family, and it's designed to serve that purpose and replace the current structure that serves the same general purpose. In addition to doing that construction, the applicant is upgrading the septic system, which is currently substandard in its accessible system that's on the plan. Trying to spot it on the plan.
There's one by the accessory structure. There's
Needs a
accessible.
proposed in the driveway.
Thank you. Right here. And the new structure and the existing house are proposed to be connected to the new system, which will include a septic tank, pump chamber unit, because we are at a lower elevation here than where the leaching field would be. And then the leaching field, which is under the driveway. So there'd be a pump, and it would pump the effluent up to the leaching field. There's also, if you've been to the site, you've noticed that there's a relatively large area of pavement in this location. It sort of serves as a parking area, and it doesn't really have any real sensible geometry to park cars, and the applicant is proposing to remove a significant portion of that and reorganize the parking up in this location and convert the balance of this to just lawn area. So the parking will not be up here, and they'll be eliminating all of this pavement. There is a grade, if you notice at the property or look at the topography, that the ground does slope down. So to ease that slope, we're proposing a low-profile stone retaining wall that has a height of approximately 3 feet with some stairs, and then the ground slopes more gently and you can walk down onto the property. There's some proposed dry wells to collect the roof runoff, and we are proposing to cut true trees that are in direct conflict. We tried our best to fit this structure in place to minimize the cutting of trees and also respected the potential for a future view from the lot B, which is up further. So we kept the house out of this area, and we're proposing it in this location. There are 2 trees. There's an existing 17-inch locust here and an existing 15-inch pine that we're proposing to cut and remove. And as mitigation for that, we're proposing to plant 6 new 3-inch caliper eastern red cedars scattered through the property. There's an actual significant reduction in impervious surfaces. If you look at the summary of impervious surfaces notes, in the zone A, there is no increase or decrease. It was designed specifically to try to balance that. The removal of the pavement offsets any expansion of this building. In the B, I'll just get my notes straight here. The current existing pavement surfaces in the B zone is 1,555 square feet, and the current existing structures is 394, so it's close to, it's almost 2,000 square feet of impervious surfaces in the B zone currently. And after the work is done, the total impervious surfaces will be reduced down to 867 square feet. So there's a significant net decrease of just over 1,000 square feet. So there's no mitigation required in the form of shrub layer mitigation. And again, that was done by design. We made sure that the structure didn't go into the A zone. We limited it and left it into the B zone, even though there's already an existing structure in the A zone. I think that sums it up. Here to take questions.
Whose project was this?
Mine?
Yours? Ed?
Yeah, I am the site officer, and I have no questions.
Courtney?
I think what you're proposing here is very nice. I mean, you point out you're reducing the driveway and you're making it a pervious surface and so forth. But I guess I have a practical question, and I'm not sure it really relates to conservation, but it does relate to a reality. Your parking area is up here where the septic field is. And if I come back from the grocery store and I have a car full of groceries and I'm my age, which is 72, I gotta cart my groceries. As I scale it off the plan, by the time I walk around the accessory building and down to the existing house, it's an 120-foot walk. I'm glad for the exercise, but what concerns me about that, and I know it seems sort of absurd to be even raising that issue, but I think when projects are being designed, you have to look at that as a practical matter. That's a long walk, and I just know from experience, when I go to the Stop and Shop, how many people don't want to walk 100 feet or 50 feet from a legitimate parking lot. Rather, they'll park their car in a fire lane so they don't have to walk more than 5 feet to get into the store to buy something. So what I'm concerned about here is that we permit this thing and this is great, but is it practical? I'm just raising that question because I think when we look at projects, when people design projects, and I realize we're trying to accommodate our regulations, and I think, from what you've done here, that's fine. But I also got to look at the practical thing, because what may well happen is, all of a sudden, these people are going to realize to cart their groceries every day, 2 to 3 times a week, 120 feet every time, they're gonna be back in front of us wishing they had a walkway or a driveway to get down to their house. So, and also, you know, that's 120 feet. If there's a fire emergency, that's 120 feet away from the building. So, I guess that's my only concern here.
Thank you.
Well, I'm 74, so I bet you by 2 years, and I do worry about that, but,
Are you,
Sir, excuse me, sir,
Yeah.
if you want to make a comment, you're more than welcome to, but to do so, you have to go up and announce yourself at the podium. I'm going to poll, I appreciate that.
yeah, I'm sorry, a little late. My name is Peter Bennett, I am the owner of the property. Actually, I own half of it, a trust of my mother's owns the other half. She's since deceased. But yes, this is that's a consideration. I got you by a couple of years, and I have bad knees. But we hope to at least, you know, have a grade, particularly if we go back to the natural grade, that will allow us to walk down there. We're really doing this actually more for our children and grandchildren. Yes, we'll go over and visit them, but we actually live in Osterville. So yeah, that's a practical problem, but I couldn't really see how to get around that, given the restrictions on appurtenant structures and that type of thing.
no, I know, and I fully understand it. I'm asking, it's not because I'm more concerned about something that's practical, and when this project's being considered, is there a creative way for you as the applicant and the engineer you've retained to come up with some way of allowing for some kind of access that gets you closer to the house as a practical matter? Not because you want to turn it into a parking lot down there, but at least so that, you know, when you have these sorts of things where you have either deliveries or emergencies or the reality of just getting a carload of groceries down there, that you can.
Well, I've actually thought more about lawnmowers and that kind of thing, a little harder to move around, and the grade is such, let me see if I can get myself oriented here. Yeah, the grade is such that you can come down this side, and you can see the conduit is a very gradual grade. We don't intend to put a walkway or anything in there, I would think Stuart showed it, but that is a very, very walkable slope. In fact, it's far more so than on this side. So it's part of the reason we moved the structure this way a little bit, also to save this one big tree, this 50-inch maple here. And it's also why this wall doesn't go where it was originally shown by the landscape guy, so.
And please understand, Mr. Bennett, I don't have any objections to the project. I'm only looking at some practical
Well, I
considerations.
appreciate the advice, because frankly, it's something we worried about.
Yeah, I mean, we're both getting up there, but exercise is a good thing.
Just a quick follow-up on that.
No other questions?
It is
Okay,
kind
thank
of
you, Cory.
challenging on the site, but they've kind of learned to live with that. That's kind of, the situation's pretty much the same, except there was an opportunity to have a car parked here, which was maybe instead of 120 feet, it was 100 feet from the house. But we thought on balance it was excess pavement, and on balance it was better to remove the pavement in that area.
Thank you. Maureen?
Mike, is this you have proposed 36-inch high retaining wall?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Are you putting fill behind that, or is it just a,
it's actually gonna be, we're gonna cut into the topography so that it slopes down like this, and we're gonna cut into it.
to make it more vertical?
Yes, to kind of, on that steepest part, to sort of ease that slope a little bit.
And keep it, okay. And all those trees, I mean, it's the majority of the trees on that side of the house. We're probably condition a limit of work to protect them?
That's
because-
fine. We looked at the grading and we made sure we weren't doing any significant
Okay.
regrading around those trees.
Right, I saw that, but
Yeah.
we'll just probably condition that, just to
Absolutely.
let you know.
Makes sense.
The cedar trees, I'm glad to see those. The only one I'm concerned about is a 10-inch oak, that it's only like 3 or 4 feet away from it, which would be at the turn of that stone wall. So we could probably, again, condition that it's somewhere not to conflict with a 10-inch existing oak.
And shift it.
Yeah, usually we put them closer to the resources,
Mhm.
but it's in the B zone. And if not, I don't know how you're gonna protect that oak, because is that a proposed wall there also with the steps? It doesn't say proposed.
This is proposed.
Right, it doesn't say it anywhere, maybe I'm missing it. But anyway, it's proposed, because it wasn't there, so I
Yeah,
assumed it was
it's
proposed.
proposed, yes.
So that proposed wall is almost on top of that oak, so if
Mhm.
you move that cedar, maybe you could adjust that to protect that oak and put the cedar somewhere else, maybe
Yeah, that-
in the old parking area or something.
That makes sense, yeah.
It's nice to have the top of the wall, the height of the top of the wall for finished grade for the contractors to know. So you might want to put that on the plan for top of wall. 36-inch wall, you need to know on all of them what the top of wall is.
If I could just clarify, I think it's on them.
It is on the one with the step, but not on the one in front of the house.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
That one exists.
It says proposed
I'm
36
sorry,
inch.
I'm sorry, you're right. I didn't put the top of the wall.
Yeah, just needs that. The other ones did have it, because it's a 20-inch.
Yes.
And it has a bulkhead, so this has a full basement under it?
Correct.
Okay. So that's a lot of excavation. How do you protect the trees? I already asked you that. Do you have a DEP number?
Yes, I believe we do.
Okay. And
Yes,
there are, how many bedrooms are in the existing house? 3?
3,
Okay, and there's only gonna be 1 in this studio?
yes.
And you've already applied to ZBA for,
Yes, we have.
you've applied, okay? And do you have any are there gonna be, obviously, this grade changes, fill calcs?
Not sure that is correct. There is a bedroom, but there's also a loft with a couple of beds. We're not adding beds to the structure, but there is a loft.
Yeah, well, they'd count that as a bedroom by
That's what
Board
I
of Health. Yeah, that's fine, as long as you're considering that as a,
In the
it's a
septic
bunkhouse is what it is.
Right.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
Mike?
I don't quite understand how the existing septic system from the house works, but as long as you're replacing it, you're making that improvement.
I think there's another cesspool over here that serves the house. It's not-
That's in the area of the public tank,
Yes.
you know, it makes sense. Anyway, you come across it, close it up.
Okay, Tom?
No questions. Thank you.
Before I ask for a motion to do anything else and open it up to the audience, on my visit there, I can understand why this is being done. There was a lot of very energetic children running around and having a whoopee, unbelievable water fights, all kinds of good things going on. And it is time to update and accommodate the future. I don't have any. Maury addressed a couple of the questions that I had, and I do see, a lot of activity ahead of this. It really is. Yeah, so it's, now I'm gonna open it up to the audience. Is there any comments from the audience? Any other information needed from the board?
Well, are we comfortable to close this with all the requests that we had? I mean,
You need the top of the wall.
Top
You need
wall.
the cut and fill calcs.
limit of
You need a
work.
limit of work on saving those trees. Mike, are you gonna be able to save that 15-inch maple with the grade changes right there? Right next to your little 32?
That was the intention.
Okay. It just looks like it's starting that, so grade changes is gonna, yeah.
This 32 was proposed to come in right right into the existing grade 32.
Okay.
So we were sensitive to that tree and we graded it.
Okay.
for that.
And we still need the revised feet, so I would just continue this until we get that information.
Do we have a date?
They're all pretty simple stuff.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could I just ask Jen to read her list again, because I
Please.
Oh,
wasn't.
sorry, cut and fill calcs, Mike.
Yeah.
Top of the wall, the one that, the preferred works well, you don't label it and put that on the plan. Limit of work, basically south of the,
South-southeast side.
yeah, south side of the other proposed retaining wall to protect, all the locusts.
Move cedar by
And,
10-inch
yeah,
oak.
Move the cedar. You just have a lot of trees on that site that you're working around, especially bringing in that septic as well.
So I can move that cedar and shift that wall away from the
Yeah.
oak tree.
What we talk about in the field, give the trees room to survive. If you're spending the money and planting them, we want them to survive. And you can get around those two where the septic's coming in.
Yes.
I don't know about that. See, 3 feet off that tree.
Are we talking about this tree?
Yeah, the 15-inch locust and the other one.
This line is a pressure line, it's 2-inch, and we can shift its
Yeah,
location.
just, try to shift it to save that.
We can shift it to go more equidistant between the two trees.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time getting through them, but. And I think that's it, obviously, you're turning that pavement into lawn, it's gonna be Falmouth-friendly lawn. All I have. And the revised plan, not revised plan, the revised, application fee.
I can turn these around and get them to you by next Wednesday. So I know you need them 1 week prior, so that would, if it were all possible, to fit us on your 12th or 19th agenda, just for a quick review of these changes, I'd appreciate it.
Do we have room? This should be a 5-minute.
I'd rather, the 12th is jammed, but there are a lot easier hearings on that night than the 19th, so if you can get them to me next week, Mike.
Yep.
I'm gonna do it on the 12th, it's just submitting the information.
Can I have a motion?
Make a
I
motion.
move to continue the hearing at the request of the applicant to September 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any other further discussion on the board, or the audience? Sir? Certainly.
Cedars don't do well with light, so if we, once we get down the road here a bit, if we gotta move the tree 10 feet, we can come back to you and go through that.
I think that's some, yes.
It's a heavily treated area,
Yes.
there, so
Yeah.
cedar's gonna have a tough time unless we pick the right spot. That's how these spots were picked. We made it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Short answer, yes. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Carries.
Thank you.
Next is Stephen Parker, 378 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 4 by 54-foot fixed pier, 3 foot by 12-foot ramp, 6 foot by 16.5-foot terminal T, a 4 foot by 4-foot upper landing, 6 foot by 16-foot landing deck with stairs, 8 10-inch diameter pilings, 2 12-inch diameter diameter float piles, 3-inch by 8-inch yokes, 3-inch by 10-inch stringers, timber handrail, and the associated clearing. Jen?
I'll save any comments until after Jeff's presentation.
Thank you very much,
Can you
Jeff.
look in the file and see if you have the harbor master plan?
That's what I was just going for. We got the DMF, Department of Marine Fisheries.
Did
We
any-
do have the harbor master.
Excellent.
Can I see the DMF letter?
There's the harbor master.
Good evening.
One quick question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. Did everybody get an email with the DMF
No,
comments?
no, that's why we want to read them.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Ryther with BSS Design, representing Steve Parker. Steve and his family recently purchased this from the Roach family. You saw this a while back, we did a septic upgrade first, and then once the agent had reviewed the site, he thought we should address the coastal bank. So we did a coastal bank restoration project. Most recently, that is under you for compliance. We haven't seen that paperwork yet, but there's that project that's just wrapped up, and now the new owner would like to build a dock here. I just want to go over the resource areas. We got land under the ocean, or salt pond back here. We have the land and shellfish. Just a low water mark here, salt marsh. Salt marsh, coastal beach, coastal bank, and then coastal storm flow up to elevation 11. And I also wanted to introduce Jack Caro. He's done the shellfish survey, and that was done prior to filing the notice. The project is sort of a standard pier, ramp, and float. We show we have an excess of 3 feet of water, 3.5, maybe a little bit more than that in some of these spot grades on either side of the float. Under the boat, let me turn this plan. We got about 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 on the outer side of the boat. So we meet the criteria for the 3-foot rule. I've done a little enlargement of the situation here at low tide. So we'll have over 3 feet of water under the float drums, that is. The dock is proposed at 4 feet wide. We have the 5-foot clearance at the high water mark. That's also shown here in the profile view. You may ask, why is there a jog in the dock? And we have an existing stairway down the coastal bank that's starting to lean a bit. It's in dire need of replacement. And the location of the dock was chosen to pass the narrowest part of salt marsh. So unfortunately, those two didn't line up perfectly. So we've come down to a landing and over to the best place for the dock, in my opinion. Also, if you look, there's a line drawn from the abutters dock to the south and north, and I didn't exceed that distance out, so there wouldn't be any navigational issues with neighbors or the harbor master. And the harbor master did give us a favorable report, if you read that. So we also have a float that meets the criteria of just under 100 feet. It's about 98 or so square feet. And a typical ramp down to that. One of the things we have to do is, because of the lateral axis height, we transition down to elevation 4.5 with a sloping section. The piles are at 14 foot on center, fairly typical layout. Again, trying to think of all the criteria. We're not in a B zone, so we're in A zone. We have the correct water depth. Float size is proper. We have the winter storage of the float shown here as well. And all the rest of the criteria is met. We do have the grading over the salt marsh. You see that it's called out here on the plan. The last thing I want to touch on is the shellfish. We did overall have not significant shellfish, but we do have within the first 35 feet or so a little bit of band of shellfish right here that meet the criteria. So we made sure that we were at least 35 feet from the A, well, there's that A and B zones for shellfish study. And so we're more than 35 feet from the B B zone, which has significant numbers, if you break the two up, which we've done. So we could go to 100 feet. Oh, by the way, one of the criteria is no longer than 100 feet. We're 85 feet from the back edge of the salt marsh. But if we went that extra 15 feet, we would actually not be required to have mitigation. And in the narrative, I've offered 1,000 cohog seed as mitigation for that location. So I could stick it out there 15 more feet. I'm sure that the harbor master wouldn't mind on that, but instead we held it back, make it a little bit shorter, and gave you shellfish seed. That about wraps it up. Jack, do you have anything? Okay, sure. Well, do you have any questions?
And whose project?
I had it.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Why do you need the 16-foot landing exactly there? Do you think that's a better place for the dock to go instead of straight
Well,
up?
again, I look at the site when I go there. First of all, the coastal bank is heavily vegetated here, so I didn't want to come back up and make a new swath through the bank where we have one right here. Yet, over the years, the family has used this area here in the salt marsh is sort of worn down to, it's only about 4 to 5 feet in width right in here.
Okay.
So see that on the plan, if you look at the high water mark,
Yep.
there's no salt marsh right in that area.
And out of curiosity, how does the float get from here to the winter storage area?
Well, that would get pulled down at the marina down there.
On a truck?
Yeah. Just about any.
Okay. That's my only question.
Mike?
No comment, no question.
Maury?
I had a couple, Jeff.
Sure.
The bank, I'm concerned with all of that structure on that bank and in the coastal beach area. The bank itself is predominantly invasives and ornamentals, and it looks as if there was very poor shape. The mitigation planting is struggling, that you planted, I think, probably for the septic upgrade. Is that what that was for? What
And
is this
restoration.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
basically an upgrade, which got, a little backlash with, with Mark looking beyond the scope of this project, of that project.
Saw all the,
And he said, oh, let's take care of that. So there's a fiber roll in there, and
yeah, I
lot
saw
of
the
the
fiber
plants.
roll, which actually appears to be doing
hopefully you
very
didn't see
well.
it, but
Huh?
hopefully you didn't see the roll,
I did.
because it's below grade.
No.
No,
What is up there?
it's covered with a lot of sediment, and it's got vegetation growing
Yeah,
through it.
there's a lot of, you might have seen the fabric, the hemp fabric, and then
Jute
the
netting?
beach. The
Yeah.
jute netting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was there, I mean, I could see it. And it had some kind of, I don't know,
I saw it going into.
sedge growing through it. But anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah.
The bank itself needs, I mean, it's, like I say, it's predominantly, I couldn't really find any natives in there. I didn't go crawling around, but it's Rosa rugosa, porcelain berry, bittersweet. That, to move that stairway so it goes directly down and you don't have all this structure out in the salt marsh area and, I mean, it is definitely in an area that's gonna have some kind of impacts out there. I know it's not a V zone, but, and I just would rather see that. Of course, you know how I feel about, the DMF letter, this is shellfish habitat for soft shells, clams, and cohogs. Docks are not a right, they're a privilege, and when I see docks being put in shellfish habitat, there was a comment in there that there was, nobody was seen out shellfishing. Well, you did it in June, and most everything's closed in June. So I don't think you would see people shellfishing in June there. But it is shellfished all winter. So it is viable habitat for the shellfishermen and the other animals and vertebrates to enjoy. The mooring field, you didn't show it on the plan.
What do you mean by?
Usually there's a mooring field. Don't we usually have a mooring field? I mean, Is the boat,
Well,
is
it's
the boat
usually-
it?
Usually the boat is the,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they call
Okay,
it a
the
boat
boat's
berth,
it.
but in the
Okay.
regulations, it's referred to as a mooring field.
Okay.
But you may be thinking about,
No,
the Shellfish Survey has sort of a box
Yeah,
for,
which you had in your,
yeah, that's in
that's
there.
in there. Yeah, that's in there. I saw it.
That's actually the Shellfish Survey A and
Okay.
B areas for figuring your numbers.
And,
But in the regulation, I just want to continue
Yeah.
that. I refer to it as, the boat berth, and
okay,
it's more of an appropriate name, actually. No offense.
yeah, no, that's fine. Water and electric line, you show it in your, profile for your pier section AA, but you don't show how it's getting there from the land. And obviously it's seasonal.
Obviously, it's going to come from the house, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, I know that's quite obvious, but it's not obvious where you're gonna bring it down through. Is it gonna be a seasonal water line?
Yeah.
Is it just gonna be a hose and whatever? So that needs to be shown. And again, I'm one of 6 of us here tonight, but, or 5, however many. I would like to, if this does move forward, the stairs to be moved in direct line and revegetate that area and why 2 sets of stairs on this landing?
Well, that was just to,
Traverse.
get off, and so, you just have the ease of getting up and down. But it sounds like
Yeah.
the landing is, well,
Well, I'm just saying,
One
it's
of
a pretty
6,
big
but-
superstructure, so. I mean, it's
I wouldn't
almost
go that
100 square
far.
foot. Well, it's 100 square foot, almost just the landing, not counting the stairs, not counting the stairs coming down.
yeah.
So, okay, that's all, thank you. And is that the furthest you can have the vents on that?
It worked out mathematically at that number. There could be a mixture perhaps, but,
Okay, that's all for right now, thank you.
Ed?
Yes,
The vents are right in
Jess, could you repeat the answer to the question asked earlier regarding winter storage and how you would get the floating section up to the storage area? I didn't hear what you said there.
well, it's usually dismantled at the end of the dock. The ramp is placed on the float, and then it's hauled down at the boatyard.
Okay.
Boat ramp, and then brought around to the,
Okay, fine,
Front yard.
because I just want to comment that usually with the floating docks, as you know, we do have a condition that it be hauled out just as you describe it. So that would be part of our order of conditions.
winter storage, yeah.
And,
It wouldn't make any sense to try to get it over the bank, because
well, we have a concern about that, right? People
it's hundreds of,
sometimes try and haul it up there and really make a mess, and we try and
a lot of
prevent that.
weight. So, yeah.
The second question, have you considered, if not, I guess I'd like you to consider scaling down the 6 by 16-foot platform? I do believe it would be possible to just take that 4-foot walkway, make a little turn, and move it, parallel to the bank, and then again perpendicular. I don't see why it has to come out and actually become a rather large structure on top of what is now a coastal beach. It's sort of an extra structure, and I think unnecessarily so.
Are you referring to, like, what
The land.
Maury says, come right up the bank?
That 6 top by 16, it's on my plan, it says a 6 by 16-foot
Yeah,
landing or platform of some sort there. It almost looks like some kind of a nice observation deck. But again, that would be an extra structure, sitting on the beach.
What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to use this location for the dock, use the stairs without going.
I'm not complaining about the zigzag,
So
I'm just,
I came up with that.
I just have an issue with the extra large
I think I can remedy
platform.
that,
So I'd like, have you looked at it, I'd like to see an alternative to that, I suppose. What I'm asking for.
That's it?
That's it, yes.
Okay. Courtney?
I note that you're offering to donate 10,000 quahog seed, correct? I just wanted to put that into perspective. Do you Could you tell us what the market price is of 10,000 quahog seed is?
I guess about $500.
$500. And what's the general norm of survivability, assuming they go into a proper thing on 10,000 seed? I
Well, that
mean,
might be a better question for Jack, but it's, with quahog, it's gonna be very high.
it's gonna be high, the survival rate's gonna be high?
Thank you. Jack Vaccaro, Vaccaro Environmental Consulting. It's an interesting question, Mr. Byrd. The answer really is dependent on where the DNR intends to deploy the seed.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, you put them into a heavily polluted area they can't survive in, there, no oxygen, they're gonna all die. I
I
understand.
have monitored seed that was placed by DNR as mitigation for a project where the decision was to place the seed at the site, which was up in Perch Pond. Not the best location to try to grow shellfish, we'd all agree. And those results were not good at all. I don't think that the survivability rates were anything to be proud of in that case. But, you know, if it's placed in the right location, where there's good water circulation, good substrate, you probably would get upwards of 50% survival.
Okay, I'm asking the question not necessarily because I'm critical of what you're offering. I just simply wanted to put it into perspective, not only for myself, but the rest of the commission and the general public. Thank you. No other questions?
I want to elaborate a little bit on that. And when we talk about survival, we're not talking about simply survival as a result of water quality. There is natural predation that occurs, obviously. You can have the most beautiful habitat for growing shellfish, and there's going to be some loss.
No, I know.
Yeah, I just want to add to comment that I don't recall the exact numbers, but survival rates, I believe, in my understanding, and we've had the data presented to us in the past, I just don't remember, but 50% survival, meaning 5,000 quahogs out of this does not coincide or sync with my understanding of the reality of the situation. That said, I mean, I don't think we really need to belabor the point. I do think the offer of the 10,000 seed is a reasonable offer, even though the survivability, I think, is going to be much less than the 50% that you mentioned.
You all set? Jen, do you have any?
Nothing the board hasn't covered, to just my concerns with that landing. I'd like to see an alternative to that.
Well, that's what I asked for.
Yeah, either an alternative location for that staircase or an alternative landing. You do not need a 100-square-foot deck out on the beach right next to the marsh to access the dock. I understand why you're doing it, Jeff, to utilize what's there, and I get that since you went through that big bank restoration, but try to reduce that somehow. And if it requires moving the staircase, then it requires moving the staircase.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. When I came up and I walked through and it says gardens, it was on the plan as I'm walking down. There could have been gardens there at one time.
These little things here?
Yeah, so as I was approaching and reading the plan, then I said, well, I'll take a walk over by the flagpole. There's no flagpole. So I was like, I know this property. I remember it from before. And as I walked around near TCB2, there's lemming. Oh, happy day.
Right here?
Yep,
By where all the mitigation is, or
Yep.
blacktop.
because I was looking at the plantings over there as well. And I'm gonna say this in public, if you're gonna cheat smart. I cannot get over the fact of people inviting me to the property to review a project, and I literally have to walk by a violation of fresh cuttings. I
Is this
just-
on?
On a tree,
On a
branches,
tree.
and I'm not that, if it was something, a sucker that's coming off the side, but I mean, that was yay big. And I gotta walk right by it.
Is this the limb or the tree?
A limb and limbs.
Well, I didn't see
Plural.
it when I was there. We were there about 10 days ago.
Well, I was I was there just a couple days
Is this
ago.
very fresh looking?
Oh, yes.
Ah, okay.
Oh, fudge.
I didn't know.
Right? So I'm
it
just
had
bringing that
happened.
to your attention. The water lines, I'm glad Maury brought that up. I didn't see that as well, the water lines and the electric, where they're gonna come up. I think you've got the gist of the board that my concern with the structure on the beach is the footings that you're putting in. You're gonna have multiple concrete footings and piers, and that's substantial to have something that meets code to support that. That's a substantial hole that you're gonna make, put in there to have that supported. I would much rather see something that's straight, and it would function better in the long run. It may historically have been how they went to the beach, but this is a new time, a new owner. I think if you clean that up and you have that function better, I think that make the project a lot more palatable for everyone. It would make your electrical lines, your water lines, a lot of things, a whole lot more A to B type of thing.
I hear you. I could ask, I'd like to ask for a continuance, if that's, unless there's other questions.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody did know that the Commonwealth of Mass Division of Marine Fisheries did inform us this is a mapped shellfish habitat for quahogs and soft-shell clams. And for the newer members, there's a lot of places in the town that aren't mapped. When they are mapped, it gives more urgency to protect these areas because they are viable, and even if there aren't that many shellfish there now, just because a house is empty doesn't mean somebody won't move in someday. And that's the problem when these mapped shellfish areas get swallowed up by, docks and structure. That area will not support shellfish again. And you're only offering us quahogs. We all know why we're offered quahogs, because quahogs have a viable life expectancy out there. Soft-shell clams, nobody ever offers us soft-shell clams. I've been on this board for a long time. I feel that mitigation is almost like extortion. It's being paid off to, I'll give you $500 worth of quahogs, so I have a piece of property now that's worth $500,000 more because it has a dock. I've never figured it out why we've ever allowed it. That's why I've been against docks and shellfish habitat. From day one, I will vote against this project because it's in shellfish habitat. And that we are there to protect the resources, not to increase the equity in people's property. We're here for the environment. But this letter, it is mapped shellfish habitat
Thank you.
for both species and finfish.
Can I just make a comment?
Certainly, please.
That said, I understand where Maury's coming from, but it still meets the criteria of the regulations. Because we're just underneath that, well, not just, we're well under, actually, the significant, figures. So,
Okay.
want to say?
Yeah, just briefly. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The comment is from DMF is consistent with the results of the shellfish survey. We did find both soft-shell clam and quahogs at this site. We found in the area within 35 feet of the mooring field, at the end of the dock. We did not find that habitat was significant. Densities that we determined that within 35 feet of the dock were well below your threshold for significant shellfish habitat. As Mr. Ryther noted in his presentation, we do span an area of significant habitat for both quahogs and soft-shell clams in the near-shore area. And this is not something that's unique. The Commission has reviewed several such proposals with docks that span habitat and has approved such projects with mitigation. I also appreciate the comment about how we tend to focus our mitigation efforts on quahog and maybe neglect the soft-shell clams. As Commissioner Harlow Hawks mentioned, it is because the quahogs have a higher success rate for propagation. And soft-shell clams unfortunately has not been, a method of successful propagation really has not yet been determined. My suggestion to the commission, and I hope it's one that you've already been mulling amongst yourselves, is that rather than getting locked into a particular species of shellfish and providing mitigation targeted to compensate for any perceived impacts to those organisms, I believe it would make more sense to consider mitigation more on an ecosystem-based approach. Try to find ways that you are improving the habitat for the species through various points in its life cycle. I'm not able to propose to you exactly what might be done, but there are many waterways in the town of Falmouth, these embayments that, for a number of reasons, lack sufficient oxygen. The habitat suffers. We have huge blooms of sea lettuce. You know, perhaps an idea that you might consider is a program whereby you start harvesting some of that sea lettuce and getting it out of the system, just as a way to promote the habitat. I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head there, but my main point is there's got to be a way where we can somehow provide some mitigation that helps soft-shell clams without necessarily getting locked into trying to propagate them. And not necessarily helping soft-shell clams, but just helping the shellfish habitat in general.
And that would be the burden on the applicant. They're requesting to, I appreciate your comments, Jeff, I really do. And I think they have a lot of merit. But the onus is on the applicant to provide that mitigation, so maybe you could go back to your clients and propose something like this in the future. It's really not up to the town to provide that mitigation, although I support the concept wholeheartedly. There is, it's more habitat, because the difference between the state and the local regs is the local regs looks at the densities where the state protects the habitat as a whole. And just to bring up the DMF letter, I don't think I've ever actually seen the put habitat loss associated with piling structures may require mitigation at the state and federal level. That's a new comment from them. So I think they're trying to tell us something through that. But I just to ask you a point, you said you're spanning that shellfish habitat. You're still putting pilings in though, right? Usually when the commission hears the word spanning the shellfish, it's that you're not putting the pilings in that habitat. So could you clarify that?
Yes, I will clarify that. I didn't mean to imply that we were bridging.
Okay.
We are in fact crossing the habitat,
Okay.
and it appears that there'll be two pilings.
Okay.
Two piles placed within the significant shellfish band.
Courtney?
This is more of a general question and observation, Jack, and we see a lot of projects coming, dock projects coming in front of us, some of which have been involved with a lot more significant soft-shell habitat than this one. And over and over and over and over, we hear that it is not possible to transplant soft-shell clams and so on. And yet things that I've read to the contrary suggest that they can be transplanted. It's just simply expensive, time-consuming, and devotes a hell of a lot of hours, which translates into money. So naturally, an applicant isn't going to be thrilled with offering that as mitigation. However, I think that, you know, soft-shell clams are far more sensitive and perhaps deserve more attention from the mitigation standpoint than this commission has heretofore required. And personally, I'm going to be far more, maybe because it's advancing age, being more cantankerous about insisting on soft-shell clams being transplanted as part of the mitigation with an ongoing monitoring thing. So if it doesn't succeed, they have to go back out and make it work. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Jeff, you're going to be asking for a continuance?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, many weeks. You just threw a curveball there, the soft shells, so. We're thinking early October, and I don't know the date.
Jeff, they're not meeting the first 2 weeks in October, so the earliest date in October I could give you would be October 17th, or September 26th.
26. All right, looks like the 26th then.
26th, okay.
Can I will entertain a motion?
At the request of the applicant, we are continuing to September 26th.
October.
No.
September.
Or September.
September, yeah.
September.
Okay,
We have a second?
second.
Any other discussion from the board?
I would like to make one more comment.
Okay, my quorum's gonna be in that case, Courtney, Tom, Maureen,
And this is the
and
20th.
Tommy. Because
Twen-
Mike, you are not here on the 26th either, are you?
26th, no, here not here on the 12th.
26th of September.
He's here on the 26th.
I'm here on the 26th, I'm not here on the 12th.
This is
God,
September.
you told me you were gone. Okay, okay, good.
And I would just like to make one more comment,
Please.
to the chairman. Also, vents on docks, the sea lettuce does hang up on them, and that is another problem that we've been seeing, where, when you were saying harvesting the sea lettuce, when you go along all the waterfronts, all the vents have sea lettuce hung up on them, and that also is a creation of the degradation of the shellfish. I mean, it's not your fault, but it happens. I mean, that's why I like a monopile. You know, then it's one less piling in the, that you have the cross.
I mean, would you consider harvesting like Jack mentioned and, place it up in the upland someplace?
Right now, if you're, I would like to take the vote. If there's no other comment through here, I think that if we open up more discussion, we're just going down something. You know that you got a continuance, you can
Yeah, okay.
formalize that.
Very good.
Is there any other comments from the audience? I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Betsy. Welcome.
Oh, I get to use this one.
Yes, you do. I'm now passing the chair over to Betsy.
No, you're passing it.
Passing the gavel.
Richard Romanoff, 10 Fiddler's Cove Road, North Falmouth. Permission to remove ornamental plantings and revegetate with native trees and shrubs and to mitigate for eastern red cedar removal. Come in compliance under DEP 253279. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just to let you all know, we will be seeing a revised plan on this. The staff met with Mr. Borselli yesterday, Mike? Yesterday, just to briefly discuss some minor changes in some areas we wanted to see a little bit more mitigation at. So I think we were all in agreement, or at least staff and Mike were in agreement that the changes are going to be made. And so just to let you know, you'll be seeing a revised plan. But this is basically a project to bring the property into compliance.
But we don't have the revised plan right now.
But it's a discussion we had
So that's
yesterday.
just to warn us that Mike's gonna give us a plan that isn't what's in front of us, so that we don't
No,
yell
I
at
don't think
him.
he's handing me the plan right now, are you, Mike? No.
But you're gonna show us a plan that's different
Yeah, and
from
I'm
what
going
we
to
have.
request a continuance so I can submit a revised plan.
Okay, good evening, Mike.
Madam Chairman, for the record, my name is Michael Borselli. I represent the applicant. And we're here tonight to cure some noncompliance matters that were related to the original house construction. We met with the staff at the time that this property was undergoing purchase and sale, and there was a pending sale, and we discovered that there was some outstanding matters starting with the fact that the original owner never requested a certificate of compliance, so we were retained to assist in doing that. And when we discovered the non-compliance matters, we also told the current owner at the time, and now the new owner, that there was no active order of conditions under which to do the work, so the best thing to do was to, there was no real disagreement about what needed to be done, we just needed to have an active
A vehicle to
permit.
do it, right.
Right, so we submitted a notice of intent, and there are 4 areas that need some additional planting or curing of some non-compliance matters, and they're outlined on the plan. And then we discovered that there were a couple loose ends when we met with the staff the other day that would require slight adjustment of some of the proposed cedar trees and the addition of a few more bayberry. So we're going to submit a revised plan, but I thought it best to just go through the project and answer any other questions in case there's something else. And hopefully we can wrap it up at the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
I'm here to answer any questions.
Who has this one? Court, I'll start with you.
I have no questions.
Ed?
No questions.
When I came to the property, I came around one direction, and as I was going to leave, I bumped into the homeowner. He thought I was somebody else, and so we had a brief conversation, and he asked me to just walk down, and he wanted to be clear about something at the top of the riprap. What was staked in the field, I said that was where the planting was gonna be. He was just explaining the plan that I had in hand. And as you look at the plan, and as I look what you have, he would still have a small, I believe, 2-foot crushed stone path. He seemed very concerned that he wanted, that's all crushed stone from the top of the riprap to the existing vegetation. What was staked shows a slight 2-foot path, so you could still navigate the top of the wall. And I told him that was my understanding of what's on the field and where the stakes are is where the plantings are gonna be, and that there would be a 2-foot path at the top of the riprap. That's my understanding. He seemed to, and if it's not, then we just gotta make sure that he understands all that crushed stone comes out.
So you're asking Mike whether there's a
Right.
path along the top of the riprap?
There was no path intended because your agent, Mark Kaspersick, was under the impression, and it was, while we tried to disagree, he was under the impression that, from aerial photos, that there was this beach grass that exists here, went right to the top of the riprap.
Okay.
Even though there was some evidence of crushed stone along the edges everywhere else, he was insistent that it should be planted right to the top of the riprap, and that was explained to Mr. Romanoff, so that was what the staff had wanted, and that's what we were proposing to do. Of course, there's a break for access to the dock.
And so if you have a discussion with your client, what I said to him on ground, because of the stakes, they weren't exactly at the end of that. I didn't know if that was gonna be a proposed walkway, but if
The
it's,
stakes, the capstones were buried, you couldn't drive the stakes.
right, and now I'm clear on it. I know what to expect, and I hope you just relay that to your client as well. The other thing that he did mention, and I don't know how to handle it, other than pulling it, is I showed him what Phragmites is, and it's really starting to come in from the neighbors. And I told him, you're lucky that you're able to see small spots of it, and just to make him aware of, that he wants to stay on top of that as far as weeding that out. That's about it. Thank you.
More? No comment. Mike?
Well, now I'm a little confused. The detail on removing that stone, I'm worried that you're going to have migration of sand, loss of soil on the river. By looking at the gravel, I think somebody put it there because it was eroded.
I don't know why originally it was there. It was probably placed there just as the backfill to dress off the top of the riprap when it was originally built. But the agent was insistent that it should be planted right to the top of the riprap. So the idea is to scrape away the crushed stone behind the stone, the top stone of the riprap, so that you create basically a planting area that can be then, soil could be, the type of soil you need for beach grass could be then added. So then more sprigs of beach grass could be planted, so the end result is
It all comes back.
it all comes back and grows right to the top of the riprap.
When you get it opened and observed, I recommend you have filter fabric available to choke that stone.
Yeah, I
Moving
agree.
that back in.
Yeah.
We're good?
Is that it? Tommy?
No questions.
Okay, Mike, do you want a continuance for a new?
Yeah, again, I think it's minor things, and I know your agendas are getting full, but this shouldn't take more than 2 minutes next time.
Are we off next week?
Yes.
Two minutes, Mike.
If it takes longer than that, it wasn't me.
2 minutes. Oh, I know who I can blame. Some of you. Well.
At the request of the applicant.
There's just too many brutal hearings on that day.
12?
At the request of the applicant, we will continue this to September 12th.
Second.
Any further questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of a continuance to the 12th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike. Continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent. Massachusetts Department of Transportation, care of Thomas McGuire, intersection of Thomas B. Landers Road and Route 28A, North Falmouth Highway, North Falmouth, for permission to enhance drainage treatment into Crocker Pond through replacement of the head wall and pipe at Crocker Pond, removal of existing sediments, installation of a new 24-inch RCP, flared end further upslope, stone pad sedimentation basin, addition leaching structures, and a new drainage manhole further upslope, restoration of disturbed vegetation with native species, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the forum on this project is Maury, Betsy, Tom, Ed, and Courtney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. McGuire?
This is Mr. Michael Clements. Actually, that's Clements. It was misspelled last time on the note, so, in your agenda. And it's also Rich Madsen is with me, also spelled Madsen. We were before you, I think.
Hold that thought, can you spell the names?
Clements.
One more time for Susan.
Clements, Clements. And Rich Madsen is Madsen.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, we were before you, I believe it was June 13th. We got continuance at that time because there was a number of issues that you wanted to see resolved, and we made an honest attempt to resolve them, I believe. And we've actually, the plans that I'd like to first go over the plans as they're currently proposed, because we have made some changes. And then we'll get into some more technical stuff if you so desire. First off, we show that the replacement of the trees at the top of slope. Down here, we propose replacement of 3 trees here. We're going to replace the wall, of course, that we're going to take out to get access to the location. The existing stumps will be removed in the area here where the apple tree is being removed. You asked that the existing leaching basin that we have over here at the intersection would be cleaned by vac truck. We've added that note to the plans. We're showing a stockpile location down here below the proposed importation galleries 2 and 3, I believe they're called. And we will guarantee that we plan to do the work this fall if we get an approval, hopefully. And we have shown the tripity curtain that you requested at the pond. And we also, in your package, we included a analysis of the riprap that we propose to use at the outlet here. When we met last time, there was some concern of if we could do a little bit better. This proposal, I think, shows a little bit more effort of what we can do. I might add, you add some significant costs we're talking now. This project currently is bid at somewhere between over $100,000 to perhaps as much as $250,000 to get this work done. So it is a significant amount of work that's being done. Let me go through what we have changed here. We have, for the existing leaching galley, we have increased the width 5 feet, so 5 by 75 is the increased leaching area in that location. At leaching basins 2 and 3, we increased each of those by 9 feet, adding basically another basin to each galley. And at the southernmost location of the project, we are adding another 9 feet to the leaching basins there. One of the other concerns that you had expressed was there was no pretreatment for the leaching basins. We are supplying proposed deep sump manholes before going into the basins, which we believe, is an improvement and should, help with the collection of sediment before going to the leaching basins, and provide a significant pretreatment. We submitted to the commission a letter back to you expressing the issues that your engineering department, upon review of our initial proposal, had with it. We since had obtained a memo from them regarding our, some questions they had with our response to them. And one of the concerns was, of course, we claimed a 25% credit for the pretreatment with it using the deep sump manholes. Now, there's no such thing within the DEP manual, saying there's a deep sump manhole. It's something we've used on other projects. And if you take the storage volume of those deep sump manholes and also the storage volume that's within the existing basins, that more than equals the storage volume that you would be obtaining from if we replaced all 37 basins within the project with new 4-foot deep sump catch basins, which would be another $80,000 in cost. We're at our limits here. That's the other one of the issues that they had reflected upon was the recharge, the ability to recharge in the infiltration basins at all locations except for area number 3. We are meeting the static recharge requirement. So before even getting into a simple dynamic method of analyzing, we're already meeting the most conservative method of analyzing for recharge. I think that hits the highlights of his comments. I welcome, if you want any other questions that may have occurred that you may have from this presentation and from what the engineering department has presented as well. Again, I would like to remind you, this is a redevelopment project. We must meet, standards to the maximum extent practicable, which I believe, we are.
Okay, thanks. Jen, did you have any questions?
Couple of questions, one question, some comment. This was sent to your engineering department to review. It's a fairly large stormwater project. Scott did a very thorough job at reviewing it. I think some of the concerns that we had at the last hearing was the way the calculations were done. We just wanted the correct information in the file. There still is some discrepancy on your calculations and what he would like to see done. That said, you are right, it is a redevelopment project. So there is going to be an improvement there. There is one point that he did bring up, Mike, that I would like you to address. And it was his last, one of his third to the last point about the unpermitted connection to the drainage system.
Yes.
And if you block that off, what is going to happen? And Tom actually physically saw it because he likes to crawl into pipes, so.
I assume you didn't find out where that pipe goes.
No, way back when,
We don't know where it goes.
yeah,
We don't know where
there was
it
only
goes.
a light shining in it when the existing galley that's there where you could see the 2-footers and all that coming from Thomas Landers that are in there right now.
We might be, we assumed that location was up on Mill Road that he was concerned about, which is,
The former Mill Road.
yeah.
Renamed Thomas B. Landers.
Actually, I think it was.
Which is now used as a driveway to a private residence.
Right, and there's catch basin there.
So that's nothing to do with this site?
Well,
No,
the issue,
it does have to do with
Okay.
the site.
the issue that we have, or the issue that is that the town drainage, that is a town way, which is connecting into our drainage system. Now, we can work with the engineering department, the DPW, to, find the best solution to that. As I'm sure you're probably aware, there's the MS4, NIPT's MS4 rule, and we have tie-ins that are going into our drainage system that we're supposed to eliminate. However, this is a public way that we would be eliminating. There's no, there could be more harm done to eliminate the discharge, block that off than what it is. So we're gonna have to look with with your engineering department and your DPW to
figure that
figure
out.
that
That's
out.
basically my major concern.
I think that's a
on it.
good solution, that we'll ask you to continue discussions to sort that out.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll close, I can have them
Oh,
close this, but
okay.
it's gonna be conditioned that you have to work with this guy.
Okay, we can-
There is some
absolutely.
general concern on their part about what's gonna happen.
yeah,
Because they don't have any records of it either. It could be they said when the road was relocated.
there were a number of, I
You
reviewed
guys can sort that out, I have faith in you.
I reviewed I reviewed the old construction plans of Route 28, Thomas Landers, Route 28A, and it's probable that Mill Road was the original Thomas Landers Road.
It was the original road.
Yeah, when it connected into.
Thomas Landers is new.
When it connected into Route 28, which is now 28A. The issue is that 28A near that location was also straightened. There was a curvature in that road, so we had straightened that road. I'm, you know, it might be 1934, somewhere in there, somewhere in the 60s, somewhere in that time frame,
62.
before I was born. I think that's where it is, and if it's agreeable that, we can work together to figure out the best way to handle that, we can most certainly work.
Yep, that's what we'd like you to do. Any other questions here?
I just had
I know you have some questions.
If this is approved, what's your time frame?
If this is approved, we really would like to get this done this fall, because we're, you're running into the low flow period, we won't be impacting any, critters or any, things, and we're pushing to get it done this fall.
And you'll be able to address that concern by this fall, if you guys start working on it?
Yes.
I'm glad that you guys have put as much effort into this. This started with an RDA on the highway. Seriously, this started a long time ago, and the notice of intent, and I know it's a lot of effort. And there is thresholds of finances and this type of thing, and it is a lot better than what we originally saw. And people, the abutter being involved in conversations and such, it's come light years from the first day that we had to deal with things. We've still got a couple little Ts and Is to cross, but we're doing well. What types of trees are gonna be up at the road?
I would assume, what's there, we're gonna go, let's say, believe those are firs or
Okay,
something like that, so we're just gonna replace them, replace in kind.
okay. Thank you. That's it.
I would hope that they weren't evergreens, that they were deciduous, because it is still a scenic road, and people do enjoy looking down there.
So would you rather have a maple tree or,
I think what we'll do is
Apple
suggest that
trees, maybe?
it's within,
okay,
Yeah, that, I'm sure you
I
can
think you
discuss
can-
that
With
with
staff.
staff.
okay,
And the riprap stone that you're gonna be using, the ballast stone down below,
yes.
could we recommend, I don't know what your state codes are, but on the the Chapcoy Bridge, we asked that it be native stone, and by accident, they got blue stone on one side and native on the other side. But native native stone, so it doesn't look so, highway.
Hideous, okay, no fine.
And that it would blend in eventually, the blue stuff never does. And the Mill Road thing, when I was looking at that and listening, that really does concern me, because there's an awful lot of contractor storage there.
That concerns-
And oil spills.
That
and
concerns me as well.
all-
That's why I recommend.
I'd like to see it get out of your system.
Yeah, I would,
and-
yeah,
Or get everything out of that layout, so that there's not that potential of hazardous waste getting into the pond.
yeah.
Because it's a pretty active area there with oil and, truck
It
store.
appears to be a lumber type operation, the trucks
okay,
and
you're
stuff.
aware of
We,
yeah.
we surveyed that.
And, when you have your, so I'm glad to see that's being addressed, thank you. And I am very pleased with how far we've gone with it, or how far. we've
I
gone.
think it's
Thank you.
a good project, and thank you, for letting us
Anything to help that pond.
work through it
Mike, they don't meet next week, so they'll vote this the following week.
for the,
Well,
okay.
just to give you a kind of a timeframe.
Be perfectly honest, as I said, when Rich originally, did the estimate for this, it was,
It's all in a tight timeline, so.
Rich originally did the estimate, it was like I believe $114,000, something along that time frame. We then went to the contractor who actually was doing the Route 28 resurfacing project. He has a number of items in that contract. It's a fairly substantial contract, so we thought he'd be able to absorb the cost somewhat fairly readily. But when we looked at the items as he bid them, that we would be needing for this project, it was like $240,000. So was it closer to 300? One of the estimates I saw was 240. So the issue we have is negotiating with him, because the items don't perfectly
Okay.
line up, so.
Well, I'm just trying to give you kind of a
So,
timeframe, since you jumped
yeah.
on that fall,
So I'm,
get it done
yeah,
fall.
so what I'm guessing is,
Fall's here,
yes, pretty much.
unfortunately. It's here, so.
My hope would be
We'll
to,
vote this before the official fall.
I know.
I would hope that we would be able to get out there before, the end of our construction season, which is generally the mid to late November, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I imagine this is about a week's worth of work, maybe 2.
Okay, are there any comments from the audience? Comments, questions? Mike?
My name's Michael McGrath. I have a simple question. Did they measure the water table in relation to the elevation of the pond? Just a point of information.
No, we have not. I will say that the structures that are on the piping going down to the pond are fairly deep and substantial. I don't foresee we're going to be getting any water. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike was asking that for, he just wanted to know a yes or no answer.
No, we did not.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions,
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
okay, the motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Vacation Resorts International, I see is continued. Helen O'Rourke, 120 Alder Lane, North Falmouth, for permission to remove the existing pavement and replace with crushed stone, to remove stones and replace with a cobblestone edge, reconstruct the existing stone wall, remove a 24-inch pitch pine and replace with a red maple, install a cobblestone apron, walkway, stairs, and parking area, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
I'm getting a quorum, Madam Chair.
Tommy, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Ed.
No, Courtney.
No Court, no Michelle.
Tommy, Mike, Maureen, Betsy,
Tom and Ed.
And Ed.
Mike?
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, again, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a continuation of a previous hearing. We were proposing to do certain activities on the property within your jurisdiction, including work within 100 feet of a salt marsh and work within a riverfront area. And we've made revisions to the plan. We've scaled back the project. And I'm here to just review the revised plan. We submitted 12 copies of revised plan to you. They were dated August 21st. And the revisions to the plans were as follows. The existing 24-inch diameter tree that was proposed to be removed is now noted on the plan to remain. Proposed sidewalk that was going to go from this set of stairs to the front door and would have been within the 100-foot no disturbance zone has been eliminated from the application. So that'll just remain as grass. We've added all the existing trees that weren't shown on the plan. We've added a crushed stone trench drain at the edge of the driveway. We still propose to remove the pavement and do the cobblestone aprons as shown on the plan. So we've dramatically reduced the scope of the work, so there's no requirement for any mitigation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jen, do you have any?
Only, did you address Lori's concern regarding the marsh?
I don't know how to address that, so I didn't address that. I think that should be taken up with the owner. If you're alluding to the damage in the marsh, I think they should be put on notice.
Any comments? I have a comment to you, Mike. I was interested in the discussion we had about how fast trees grow. Remember, we talked about what would be caliper inch per caliper inch versus tree for tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent a document to Jen that I'm sure she'll can send to you if you'd like. It takes about 7 to 10 years to increase an inch. Yeah, they don't grow too fast. So, you know, if you can calculate how long it would take to restore, removing a 24-inch tree, if you had 4 3-inch trees, how long it would take before you would get back to the same function. I mean, you can do those calculations.
Okay, that's useful, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any questions? This side? Any questions this side? May I-
Motion to close and take under advisement.
Second.
Any questions from the audience? Okay. Yeah, thanks for addressing and putting in some of,
The French
filling
drain
in
is good.
French drain and some of the other concerns we had. Okay, motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike. Am I right that Michael George, 45 Dusty Miller is also continuing?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Walter Platt, 26 Drift Road, West Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing garage and construct a single-family house with a garage under deck, install a Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, utilities, and unpaved driveway, mitigation plantings, maintain the existing path, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen? For Maury?
Quorum is Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, Ed, and Courtney.
Do you have any other comments, Jen?
Only that last time the discussion revolved around, the DCPC regulations and the commission's ability within those regulations to require a 200-foot buffer to the resource areas. I know the commission wanted some old records placed in the file. That was done. Mr. McGrath addressed those. I don't think some of those exactly address the 200-foot buffer. There was other documents that the commission placed in the record regarding the buffers, and the applicant responded to that, as well as some comments regarding the commission's concern about sea level rise. I think that basically the project just revolves around those DCPC regulations.
Did you put this in?
You asked me doing this, I did.
Okay,
in
I just want to read
response
something
to-
out.
Okay,
from it.
in response to the applicant's submittal.
Okay. Mike?
My name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional land surveyor. My firm prepared the notice of intent and the supplemental filings. Just to go over quickly, this is Drift Road, that's the proposed house. This is Beach Pond, there's Salt Marsh, we're in the DCPC, there's a 100-foot undisturbed buffer. What we did was we filed a letter report, and what I've tried to do is very quickly put together a summation so that we could get through this lengthy thing rather quickly. The first issue was that the commission referenced 2 orders that you said you thought, in your recollection, discussed the 200-foot setback. One was Solomini, and when I looked at the Solomini order, there was only a 30-foot setback. The other one was LaRusso, it had a 130-foot setback. LaRusso predated the regulations. So what we did then is we looked at the 26 orders that have been issued since the DCPC regulations, and they don't refer or mention the 200-foot setback. The red line that's on here, the DCPC boundary, is approximately the green, and the red is 200 feet from every salt marsh. So you can see that basically there's hardly any parcels except for a group along Route 28 that have any effective area outside the 200 foot. So we did reference and give you a quick reference for every one of those particular orders. The numbers relate to the chart that or table we prepared. So we found 26 orders issued in the DCPC. None have the 200-foot setback. The 200-foot setback, as I said, precluded development. Then there were reports placed in the file. One of the reports talked about denitrification enzyme activity. I forgot the word enzyme. In French salt marsh in New England. That was the title of it. It links the presence, that's okay, of a denitrification enzyme to man's activities in a 200-foot meter buffer. The 200-meter buffer actually referred to a paper by Ivan Valliere et others that talked about that they developed a model for nitrogen inputs to a nearby estuary, and the 200 meters was the was actually used as a distance back from the wetland that you would pay close attention to the nitrogen from on-site systems. He identified attenuation of nitrogen in the groundwater. So in this report that's in your file refers to Valliere's, and in Valliere, they both use the word buffer, but it's not a vegetative buffer. There's no description of anything that relates to a vegetative buffer. So, as I said, the 200 meter that's in this seems to be the distance where dissolved nitrogen is attenuated to an acceptable level from septic system discharge. Then there was another report from vegetative buffers in the coastal zone it was written in Rhode Island, Coastal Research Centers, Rhode Island Sea Grain, and NOAA. It was dated July 1994. It says ideal buffers effectiveness are based on width, soil types, mixture of vegetation, density of vegetation, and slope, and compares width in very specifically to removal of dissolved constituents of surface runoff. When you look at the charts, they're all a series of graphs that have curves. Most of the removal occurs in 100 feet of the dissolved constituents in the surface runoff. So looking at that, what we decided the easiest thing to do to provide mitigation is to intercept the surface runoff with a berm at the work limit and construct in the ground basically a trench that's filled with sand and mulch, 50% each. The idea is this will intercept the surface runoff in almost all storms. And since the detailed science about this report was related to surface runoff, we then have provided by physical alteration increased removal from surface runoff going across the vegetative buffer. We also have a 5% slope, which isn't, it's pretty shallow compared to some of the slopes that were recited in it. We have very dense vegetation. Our survey crew, in order to stake some of the corners, had to hack out paths and create almost a rabbit hole to get to one of them, a man-sized rabbit hole. So this is very, very dense vegetation. I feel I ought to say something about wildlife because Massachusetts has seen an increase in mammals in both diversity and population in the last 50 years. One of the things that actually is happening in our coastal areas, we've lost 4 different birds that used to have habitat on coastal fields, and the vegetation that exists there would be adverse to that bird habitat. Mr. Platt has been here. He's lived here for years. He describes that he used to sit at this structure as a little boy and watch the trains go back and forth. So this vegetation has grown substantially higher. There was also discussion about sea level rise. And in fact, I forgot to note that I did see that there is a report of a 2009 report about accelerated sea level rise in a portion of the northeast coast of the United States. When you look at the site on the ground, you can go out the path, you can walk up and down the path, and if you look closely, there is an intermittent stone wall that's all along here. The stone wall actually is on a little ridge or a little mound. I provided photographs that show myself standing at different areas around that stone wall to give you an idea of scale. I've drawn this in a very approximate manner. The edge of the salt marsh varies. Sometimes it's up against here, sometimes it's up closer. And the bottom line is that this ridge is a site-specific condition that will limit the landward movement of the salt marsh in response to sea level rise. If you look at the, this is mean high water, which is about elevation 3, and this is about elevation 4, so that this rise is about elevation 5 approximately. And if you look at the photographs that are provided, it shows you some scale where I stand next to it. So the sea level has been rising about a foot 100 years. It's been going on a long time. This says that it's being accelerated by global warming, and most likely it is. But it's still going to be restrained by the landform there. And while it's very nice to file something that says we should be insisting on greater setbacks than ever because of a 2009 report, we have actually DCPC regulations that talk about sea level rise, and we meet the standard of your regulation by specifying that the finished floor is a foot higher. The other point is that it's fine to file reports, but you have to look on the ground to see what the circumstances are. The other point is that this elevation of the ground where the structure is being constructed is about elevation 11. This is proposed elevation 10.9, 10.8, 10.1, so that we think that that's a great vertical distance over the elevation of the salt marsh. For instance, your own town hall, the elevation of your office is 6.1. So this site will not be affected by the sea level rise. It'll be affected much later if there is a dramatic sea level rise than some of other man's facilities elsewhere in the town. We also talked about the buffer width. We believe that the buffer width is sufficient since it is the required buffer width under 10.18. And it seems to us that if it's sufficient elsewhere, it's sufficient here, especially when you consider the conditions on the ground where the buffer vegetation is so thick that you can't walk through it. We also, I should show you on the plan, this mulch barrier is been added to the plan. It runs across like this. So it's always on the downhill side of the work limit line, even though we're sometimes planting on the inland side. So I believe that through the combination of everything that we've done and added to the plan, I think we've addressed the commission's requests and issues.
Thanks, Mike.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Mike, how many of those 26 orders converted an accessory structure such as a garage or a shed to a house with a septic?
I don't know.
I thought you did a review of the orders of conditions.
I did.
Okay, in the case of Solomini's house was required to be placed in the exact same footprint as the little cottage. That's why I had a 30-foot buffer, to maintain the 200-foot buffer from the other salt marsh on the other side of the property.
That's why I couldn't expand.
Yeah,
It had to
that's why
be
I
in the same
couldn't
footprint.
expand. I think the board, when looking at this, should look at what it says in your regulations is the land use and the impacts of land use. You're going from a storage area to a structure with a septic. So the board does need to weigh that. And as far as 100 feet being appropriate for 1018, I believe I addressed this last time. The 1018 as well as the wetlands regulations of the state give you a jurisdictional boundary of 100 feet. You can't protect anything beyond that. The DCPC regulations are unique, and it does give the commission the ability to offer greater protection and require greater protections for this very particular resource area.
And for
given
people
its
who don't,
sensitivity.
those of us know what DCP means. It's District of Critical Planning Concern.
And it was developed, I believe, in '96 in this area to protect this area. So the argument that it's sufficient for 1018 and CMRs, you don't have the authority to go beyond that. And in your own regulations, you provide the maximum amount
For salt marshes.
for salt marshes under which your authority. You do have greater authority in this area than sometimes the commission should exercise. Mike, did you look at your notes?
Yes.
Do you know how many were converted from like accessory structures to houses?
Well, why don't I start out by saying there is number 8 on my table is a brand new house at 139 Little Neck Bars Road under the name Resnicoff, issued in 1998. There is
Issued 2 years
another-
after the DCPC reg?
Pardon me?
Issued 2 years after your DCPC regs?
In 2003, you issued an order to construct a brand new single-family house at 25 Charles Lane. So there's 2 that, and the third one was 87 Indian Ridge Road, where you allowed the construction of a brand new single-family house. There
And
have
when was
been
that?
other reconstructions.
Indian Ridge was that?
That's
When
number
was it?
27.
What was that?
Number 27, code.
We don't have 26.
26 is the last one we had.
Lily's 26, and that's a single-family renovation.
Yep.
That was a renovation.
If I could just add to that, for the record, I'm Laura Moynihan, I represent the applicant.
On the list that Mike has given, number 6, 111 Little Neck Bars Road, garage with habitable space, addition septic, that was in 2005. Number 19, 25 Charles Lane, which he cited, new single-family dwelling. Number 20, 29 Old Homestead Road, 1999, construct new single-family dwelling, 5,994 square feet of disturbance, 32,000 square foot lot, which is smaller than we have here. Number 21, 39 Old Homestead Road, single-family renovation with addition. Addition at 35 Wigwam Road. Number 24, 81 Ridge Road, reconstruct and expand the garage, add a pool and patio.
Were any of these,
What if these have to
existing
do with
buffers?
buffers to the salt marsh?
Because in none of these cases, a 200-foot buffer was imposed. That was the point of this whole review, is that the commission has never imposed a 200-foot buffer requirement to a salt marsh in the DCPC. And
That's
so,
not true, because they did it in solemn meeting. They allowed the building to be built in its original footprint to protect a 200-foot buffer from the other place. I would ask you, Laura, in some of these cases, such as the reconstructions and the additions, was natural vegetation removed? I mean, was it removed, or were these areas already disturbed, or were these areas in their natural states?
well, they were clearly redevelopment, I think, because there was existing development on the property already.
So it's redevelopment, meaning that it was legally altered before.
Correct, as was this particular project. And we did file at your request a letter from the building commissioner confirming that this site is eligible for a building permit for a single-family dwelling. And Holmes and McGrath did go through and review each one of these orders. We chose not to put each and every order in the file because of the volume of material, and thought that this review would illustrate what we were trying to point out, which was that the 200-foot buffer requirement is highly restrictive. It has not been imposed in the orders that were reviewed. And also, I just want to point out that the DCPC regulations themselves, when they were adopted in 1996, gave the town the implementing authority for the regulations. Those regulations talk about minimum performance standards of the Cape Cod Commission's regional policy plan being followed. So the statement that a 100-foot buffer may not be sufficient, I don't think is correct. I think that at the time the DCPC regulations were adopted, the minimum performance standard under the regional policy plan was a 100-foot buffer from the salt marsh. And so that's why that 100-foot minimum was carried over, I believe, into the Falmouth wetlands regulations where the DCPC regulations were adopted. Those regulations consistently talk about the town adopting regulations that follow the minimum performance standards of the regional policy plan. That's where that 100-foot allowed buffer came from. Yes, it does say you can go up to 200 feet and apply that discretion. And what we've tried to do here is to show you that because of the unique site conditions here, particularly the extremely dense vegetation, the topography, that buffer is sufficient, that you don't need to go in excess of that 100-foot buffer requirement. The DCPC regulations also call for equity to be applied in reviewing these projects to preserve private property rights. And that's a very important point, because applying a 200-foot buffer to this particular project, you would be deeming a buildable lot not buildable for a single-family dwelling. So that would be non-equitable, obviously, to the property owner. We've tried to show you through volumes of response that the scientific reports that have been submitted, they do contain a wealth of information, but in essence,
what they're describing in terms of the ideal buffer is what we have here. We have an ideal buffer. We meet all of those conditions. So we're asking you to take all those factors into account, including the past history of project review in the DCPC and the implementing regulations. Thank you.
I have some comments to make, but I'll let my,
I have no further questions.
all right. Do you have any comments?
Not yet. I'm pondering.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set.
All set, thank you.
Laura, you stated that there was a letter from Eladio that we don't have in our file.
It was submitted today. I asked them if they needed to go to the zoning board of appeals to convert a garage and accessory structure on a lot that doesn't have a primary structure into a house, so they submitted the letter.
So we were just asked for that this morning, so I submitted it this afternoon. It's in the record, and he signed off on that.
Right, you just said we had it.
Let me make
Go
a
on.
couple of
Yeah,
points and then-
go on.
Okay,
That's all I want.
a few points I want to make. The fact is, the DCPC and the 200-foot buffer, this is an area that salt marshes are in critical danger, and in fact, one of the most important habitats in terms of productivity, in terms of providing the base of the food chain for much of our marine systems. The food that's produced and through the detrital system sort of fuels our marine systems here. And in fact, we all recognize that the reason this is a district of critical planning concern is that this is a really important marsh system. I want to make a comment, and I might say, I think I said in the record the last time, but I do have a PhD in biology, and in fact, I just came back from working with people in the Virgin Islands on, we were particularly talking about the critical role of wetland buffers to preserve marine systems. And to address Mike's question, they talk about a 200-foot, or that paper on enzymes talked about a 200-meter buffer, and he said it wasn't a vegetated buffer. Well, vegetated buffers with roots down into the system play two roles. One is they're pulling up nitrogen to build into their biomass, and the second is they're pulling up a lot more water into the system. So even if it was deeper groundwater, water in vegetated areas, water's being brought up from deeper through the plant system, and it's lost through transpiration. And the second thing, so that's on the buffer side. On the role of coastal sensitivity to sea level rise. In particular, this is a paper it was a seminal paper done by Redfield from Hui in 1972 that's quoted in here. Given the setting with a low gradient slope, low wave energy, and a high sediment supply, and he was referring to Barnstable Marsh, but this marsh is just the same. A marsh can migrate both inland onto uplands and seaward onto sand flats as the shallow lagoons begin to fill in with sediment. And in fact, what Ed pointed out in the last hearing is that this, even if there's some rocks there, this is an ideal place for a marsh to migrate inland. Those little rocks will just be, buried in the system. It's just like if you go to some of the marshes around here, say Pond 14, for instance. If you were to drain Pond 14, what you'd find in the bottom are cedar trunks. So,
Look at South Cape Beach, the elm forest that's being.
and the elm forest itself. So, these systems can migrate, and they leave behind whatever rocks or tree trunks that happen to be there.
Madam Chairman, you just quoted from a report that wasn't in the file when I
No,
was.
it wasn't. It's the file it was the report that you just quoted, you just referenced. coastal sensitivity to sea level rise. Section 4.4, horizontal
No,
migration.
that's not what the one that I have. I have hotspot of accelerated sea level rise in the Atlantic coast of North America.
Well, Madam, Mike, you submitted a paper, you submitted comments, the commission's addressing those comments.
Yeah, but you're submitting something that I haven't seen, and I'm supposed to be able to come before you and talk.
You submitted something on last week. The commission is responding to that.
You're putting things in the file that I haven't had a chance to look at and read. And I say that's unfair. End of story. It's unfair.
So the commission is not allowed, Mr. McGrath, to address the comments you made? Is that what you're saying?
May I just respond?
And it's ends.
Yes, it is endless.
Madam Chair.
So-
I think-
Yes, you have the floor, Laura.
Thank you. I think the point Mr. McGrath is making is that I did look at the file today. That report we have not seen. We spent quite a bit of time going through the reports that were put into the file, and I think in fairness to the applicant, if there's new information that you're relying on and quoting as part of the record, the applicant should at least have had the opportunity to review that before the hearing. So.
There it is. So you did put it in.
Is it date
Last
stamped?
week in response to the submittal that was made.
Is it date stamped in?
No, it is not date stamped in.
Because I reviewed that file today.
That paper was that paper was placed in the record in response to the applicant's submittal last Thursday.
Okay. I think maybe it would be fair to have those sent perhaps to the applicant, or at least an email saying new materials be put in the record. But I did review the file today to check for new material, and I did not find it for the record.
Black piece of paper.
Are you requesting a continuance?
Madam Chairman, the board has
Mike,
absolutely every right.
Mike, you just pointed out that there's a little stone wall. I'm just saying that in a low slope, even if I didn't rely on this, but I am quoting it from this, that these systems can just migrate inland as sea level rises. That's no barrier to a migration of a ecosystem.
It's not a barrier per se, but it is a delaying piece of topography that's unique to this parcel, and it's not, I do not know if it exists in Barnstable. In fact, Barnstable's salt marsh is much greater than it ever was in colonial times. I know that for a fact. In any case, I stand by my point that there is a topographic feature here
Right.
that's unique.
Right, we understand the point at least I understand the point you were making.
I understand the point he was making too. And by the way, Mike, we need a copy of that board, and a copy of the plan that you put the red line on for the DCPC, for the record. So if you can just photograph that and send it to us?
That's in the letter.
That's in the letter.
No, how about that, the board though?
I just made this. and
Okay.
I will get it to you. There's a mechanical reason why I didn't bring it forward.
No, I understand.
Okay, if we don't need any more information, we could close this hearing, take it under
And I
advisement.
would so make that motion to close
Second.
this hearing.
Okay. Are there any further questions on the board? I'll come back one more time. Any questions in the audience?
I have one question, I'm sorry. Jan?
You gotta-
Well, sir, first of all, you have to come up and tell us who you are,
Okay. Thank you.
and then I guess Mike has another comment too.
I apologize. Jan, I think you
Oh, you have to
just
tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joseph Farah from 26 Loomis Lane, Falmouth, Mass.
Okay.
Jan, I just wanted to rehear that question that you, or that statement that you made about Eladio allowing for a garage where there's no residence. Is that allowed or not?
I asked the applicant to either provide a reason or provide an application to the zoning board of appeals if necessary to convert a garage to a primary structure where there wasn't one existing. They provided a letter from Eladio saying that this property, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura and Mike, because I don't know zoning as well as you guys do, does have a letter of buildability, but they still need to meet the wetlands regulations, the DCPC regulations. His letter is written under the zoning regulations, meaning a special permit is not required to convert the garage to a primary residence.
Okay, then it's a little different than the circumstance that I was thinking of, because, you know, I have a property and then I have a lot, and I was just wondering if I could actually just build a garage on it.
You have to go down to talk to the building department.
Talk to Eladio.
That's not, we don't answer that.
Question.
I think, Madam Chair, if you would be willing, we'd like to request that this be tabled until the next hearing so that Mr. McGrath can review that report before the hearing's closed. If you're relying on that report.
I'm not relying on the report, I'm just
Okay.
putting it in to add some substance. This is, Ed brought that up and made the point very clearly the last time. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that these systems, this is a ideal system for marsh to move inland. It happens here, and that I was just responding to Mike's comment, particularly to Mike's comment, that this little stone barrier would be an impediment.
To the migration.
There's
Right.
no reason the board cannot respond to the applicant's submittal of last week.
I'll leave it to the board. That's the request.
We're supposed to submit everything in writing, so how could we ever respond in writing to something that's put in after we submit something?
You could
I do not
respond-
agree with
Here,
that.
Mike, then, how would you like these hearings to go? You submit something, that's the final word, the board's not allowed to respond? It's the board's hearing, it's the applicant's hearing.
Mike, I sent this last week, I've been gone for a week. I sent this to Jen, she put
It was in the record
file.
Thursday. I'm not quite sure why Attorney Monahan did not see a black piece of paper with record today, but I just pulled it out. And
The request is there,
To
to
table?
table this until after the next hearing, to have Mr. McGrath look at it. I'll leave it to the commission. If you feel you don't want to honor that, that's your choice. We just want an opportunity to see it. It isn't date stamped in, so we really don't know when it was filed, and it should be date stamped in, and I didn't see it today. So I went over there and took my time to check for additional information to avoid this particular problem. Again, you may not feel that's necessary, but
I don't
that's the
feel it's
request.
necessary to
Okay.
make it, personally, I don't feel it's necessary to
Okay.
make a decision. We have a motion and a second on the table.
Just so I was pretty clear till just a couple of minutes ago for the attorney. When you say table, we'll hear the next hearing this evening. You're
Yes.
gonna review the paper and then we'll reopen your hearing. Okay, not a continuance. It's tonight that you just want us to table it for your consumption of the article.
Correct, just to give him 10 minutes to look at it. And if there's any further testimony based on it, he can offer it at that time. If not, he'll say no more testimony. That's all, just in fairness to the
Well,
applicant.
we don't have to take the vote right now. But I'm prepared to take the vote.
If you close the hearing, then we don't have the opportunity to put any further testimony in. So I'm just trying to ask you to not close the hearing, table it till after the next one, and give Mr. McGrath 10 minutes to look at the report.
I have a question. If they do put more testimony in, is the board going to comment on it?
Of course I
Of
will
course.
comment on it.
Yeah.
Of
well,
course.
You're commenting now. I would recommend tabling it to give Mr. McGrath the opportunity to review it.
I'd like to revise the
And
motion.
I agree with that
Yeah.
position.
Yeah,
So
I
then
mean-
we need to have a withdrawal of the existing
No,
motion.
no, yeah,
We have to withdraw the motion and then have a motion to table.
Second.
my motion is to withdraw closing the hearing and extending the courtesy of a table till after the next hearing.
Are you, no, what do you mean the next hearing? All you're doing is
Letting
withdrawing.
him look at this.
I made the motion
You're
to
withdrawing
close,
your
and I'm
motion.
withdrawing that motion.
You're withdrawing your second. Someone's
So
gonna
I will
say
move that
the
we table closing the hearing to allow Mr. McGrath time to review the submittal.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous, so moved. We don't, but tell Mike to read quickly, because we only have two more sections, two more issues. We're on to enforcement issues. Joseph and Gita Farah, 26 Loomis Lane, West Falmouth, are clearing, digging, and altering wetland resource area and in buffer to resource areas defined in FWR 10.00, 3.310 CMR 10.00. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, this is an enforcement issue, off of Loomis Lane. There's been documented, cutting, herbiciding, and altering of the vegetative buffer to coastal bank, salt pond, salt marshes, Linda Ocean, salt pond, at the 26th Loomis Lane draft. It has migrated into the neighboring property at 16 Loomis Lane. Austin, that's why you have two separate enforcement hearings listed on your agenda. Basically, I can show you the photos of before and after. They look a little psychedelic. That's when Mark was learning how to use a new camera, but you can see the vegetative buffer on that property. We have had many reports of cutting along that property. And so basically at this point, we are asking the commission to issue an enforcement order to allow us to, one, access the property, determine the extent of the violation. We know there's a violation out there. Two, to require a restoration plan for both properties, and three, a monitoring report to cover that work. And the enforcement order would obviously require the usual plans with the appropriate setbacks. You have basically the staff reports in front of you on Loomis Lane. It's a little disheartening, given that the property owner is well aware of the wetlands regulations and has been through this process before.
You have to tell us who you are again.
Joseph Farah, 26 Loomis Lane. First, let me begin by saying I have no disrespect for arriving late. I know I did come in after 7. The reason being is because I have been spending a considerable amount of time down here, and I did not learn of this until yesterday when I picked up the certified letter at the post office back in Dover. And you'll be able to verify that, obviously, with the signature and return receipt. So I'm not quite prepared tonight, but I did do a little bit today to try to summarize a number of things that I believe you need to be aware of. And with that, as Jan has mentioned, I am fully aware of going before you and the uncomfortness of doing that, having done it once before at 197 Walker Street when I attempted to construct a wall, and need to remedy that situation. But I will tell you that I did remedy it, so it's not like I'm running from property to property and creating havoc. But with that, let me just give you a little summary of what I believe the circumstances to be. And I will tell you that I will not lie to you. I did remove a number of invasive species. In fact, I have a list of them that I have, and I have pictures as well, but unfortunately I don't have a picture for everybody. And that's where the preparedness doesn't come in to play. And what I did do after I removed invasive species, I then actually remediated with indigenous species, and that being arrowwood, inkberry, Rosa rugosa, which was all on the property. And I can prove to you that what I did remove was all vines, and I can show you that with pictures. Honeysuckle, knotweed, and bittersweet were the things that I did remove from the property. And I will tell you that I don't have receipts for what I did in terms of remediation, but I made a quick little list. And while I did not remove any shrubs, I count here on this list, only because I counted them, I didn't actually look at the receipts, but I will get that for the next time, if there is. 50 cedar trees and 105 shrubs, inkberry, blueberry, and arrowwood. I know you probably have a number of questions, and I don't have poster boards, and I wish I did, to describe a number of these things. I will tell you that I did remove and correct the Rosa rugosa that was along the wall. But there's where I put more than 100 plants in replace of the 10 to 12 that I moved because they just weren't aligned. I do have pictures of something that I think is pretty interesting for you to look at, and that is how the invasive species were actually killing the cedar trees on my property. And I can perhaps just at least pass that one down to you, and then also show you some pictures of how things did look before. Something else that I want to just mention to you is I know a number of people have commented on my lawn, and I can tell you that I use no fertilizers. I use Epsom salt, sodium, magnesium. And I believe that's an organic product. I learned that as a landscaper when I was much younger. And it to me is, and I have literature on it, should you care to read it, but it is basically referred to as the organic gardening supplement, Green Living. I don't believe in using herbicides, and I don't use herbicides. And I know there's some question out there that I did. I will show you pictures of myself actually removing the poison ivy, because I do it by hand. I don't use any machinery. I use clippings. And when it comes to fertilizing the lawn, if you care to ask my landscaper what I use, he'll tell you I do it myself, and it's, I'm telling you the truth, it's Epsom salt.
Are you aware of the fact that to do any of this work with the landscaping? I mean, we like people to control vines and invasives and so forth, but we like to see what the plan is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not that we like to see, that's it's required for that kind of work.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And to be honest with you, you know, with 197 Walker Street, having gone through this before, I really didn't think just dealing with evasive stuff would be an issue. But obviously, you want to know even the evasive stuff and even what I'm putting back in place of it. And I apologize for that.
Well, I
And
think
there's a notation there of digging. And the only digging I did was to dig to put the new plants in.
Well, I
But-
think at this point, Mr. Farah, that we do need to go out there.
You're more than welcome.
The enforcement order is going to give the commission the ability to instruct its staff to go out there and determine what is happening on the site.
Yep.
You know, you are well aware from your other project, property, and Dr. Gladwell just said, any work within the commission's jurisdiction does need to be permitted to avoid situations like tonight. This is not something the staff likes to do, this is not something the commission likes to do, it's not something people like you have to address, but it's there. So the enforcement order is going to give us the ability to access the property, review what's happened, discuss with you what's happened, see if the plantings that you've placed are appropriate, and restore the natural buffer that was there. We have a number of tools to do that, old photographs of the property before you purchased it, aerial photography, so we can work with you through that process and let you know what will be required, if anything, to move forward.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely. Not a problem.
I have one question. You say you just learned of this today or yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Nobody's attempted to speak with you in the past regarding the issue on the bank?
I received an email from Jay, which I didn't believe until I received my own letter.
Okay. And so that's the first time you were contacted by your neighbor regarding it?
Email,
Okay.
yeah, which I believe is an email sent from Mark to Jay, and then Jay forwarded to me. If I could just pass these down?
Oh, absolutely.
And then,
Chair.
we're going to make
Oh,
you
sorry.
out of the record. And then we keep them for the record.
You can keep it.
All right.
You can keep those.
So-
I'm gonna make bigger ones for you, but the first photo is just the photo of.
It is not necessary to make bigger ones, sir. What the process is going to be is the board can issue the enforcement order, and that will trigger that mechanism I just spoke of to allow us to meet with you on this site and give you guidance for moving forward, how to restore the property if restoration is required. I can't make, I'm assuming there is, but I can't make a definite determination until we access your property, your neighbor's property, which hopefully we will get the same we know we'll get the same cooperation there, and that will give us the ability to do that and move forward.
So the next step is for us to vote an enforcement order.
I make a motion.
Required. This is on 26 Loomis Lane, and I'm not sure if the property owner of 16 Loomis Lane would like to speak or not. Did you open them simultaneously, Madam Chairman, or no?
No.
No?
I didn't.
And Madam Chair, I would like to submit this into the file. This is from 2008. And it's a photograph from Burgess Street across to Loomis Lane
Okay.
of the
Are one of
residence.
you gentlemen, Mr. Austin?
I am.
Would you like to speak?
Sorry? That's that same tree that's in my photo.
Oh, you
You
would
don't
not?
have to- you don't have
I mean,
No,
you
no,
don't have
this
to.
You serve, the board has to
See
say
that
for
there?
26 Loomis Lane,
That's
it's
this
going to
tree
be the
right
same issue
here.
for 16.
And
Just
then,
gives
this
us
is what
the
it looks like
mechanism
now.
to move forward.
I'm actually gonna ask if
But
I can remove this
he
and
can
replace
speak
it
if he
with a
wants to.
better one, but we'll get there when we get there.
But don't get up yet because we haven't.
We gotta do them individually.
Yeah, so we have an order, we have a motion, do we have a second, Susan?
I'll second.
Tom. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table for an enforcement order on 26 Loomis Lane. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. John Austin III, 16 Loomis Lane, West Falmouth. for clearing and altering wetland resource area and in buffer to resource areas as defined in FWR 10.00 and 310 CMR 10.00. Thank you. And Jen,
Madam Chairman, same thing.
it's the same, right?
Fortunately, the alteration from 26 Lynx Lane has migrated into 16 Lynx Lane, as the board knows. The only recourse that the board and the staff have is to issue the enforcement order against the actual property owner.
Right.
And we'll ask the person responsible for the work will claim responsibility for that. In this case, again, an enforcement order would allow the staff to access the property and determine what needs to be done, if anything, at this point, and move forward in guiding people into remedying that through that enforcement.
Okay, but the other option for Mr. Austin is for him to grant access to you.
Yes.
And also to agree that if there has to be restoration?
Yes, and that's done through that process, the enforcement process. And that's it.
And Jen, you just made a comment that if the person who did the damage to Mr. Austin's land admitted to doing the damage to his land, then
It's still
Oh,
tied to
okay.
the property.
Okay.
It's still tied to the property.
Okay.
That's the trigger. It's tied to the property. But the board has dealt with something like this in the past, but
Yeah.
it's really not the doing or respond, the property owner was not the responsible party. The wording can be crafted to reflect that. Think, Great Sipples Marsh.
Sir, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jay Austin. I live at 16 Lummis Lane. I received a letter from Mr. Kaspersick. I responded to that letter. I think you have a package
Yes.
with all the documentation that supports it. I have not cleared anything. I have not used any herbicides. I've tried to follow the rules. I think that the package that I gave to you supports it. I'm not sure why I'd get an enforcement order against me for something my neighbor, action he's taken, but
Well, that's
I'm a little
what-
confused.
I am also in that, if, this is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
If your neighbor has admitted this, and you agree to let staff go on to see what has to be done, and your neighbor, if something has to be done there, and your neighbor's responsible for it, then if there was an RDA or a notice,
We could also-
then it could be also,
We can
your, we would have to have, then we would have to issue that to your lot.
Madam Chairman, we could issue it to one party under two properties, but again, think Great Sippos and Marsh, we have to do it to all parties involved. It's the guidance we got.
To do it to all.
All properties have to be listed.
Oh, Great Sippos Marsh.
Yes, remember.
It's been a long day for me. It's been a long 6 days.
I understand that, Madam Chairman. But in that case, the property owners were absolutely not responsible and not aware of the work
The
that they've
damage,
done.
right.
And those orders were still issued to each individual property owner. The properties have to be listed. That's unfortunately the way the system is set up.
But your
I'm
order
sure
will
when we
reflect
go out there, we can
what's
work
happened.
through this in a
No, I'm
very
fine with all that. I
friendly
just,
manner.
I haven't cleared anything or cut anything or.
Well, we
herbicide
understand,
anything,
we
so
understand that. We
We
just want to,
understand
That's
that,
fine.
we
Mr.
just
fine.
want to,
I'm not in opposition with my neighbor. What he does to his property is his business.
yeah,
You know,
right. And in theory, you're probably not opposed to keeping vines and stuff away, but
No,
you
I think-
understand what the process is. There's a process,
no, I understand the process and
Right.
I've followed it for the past 25 years here in town, so
right.
I'm fully aware of it.
Okay, so that's
Okay,
what,
very good. Do you
so
have any
that,
questions for me then?
No.
Okay, thank you.
no, I hope for your sake, we don't ever have to see you in this kind of situation again.
I'm sure you won't. Thank
Good.
you.
Make a motion to follow staff's recommendation of an order an enforcement order on
On
16 Loomis Lane.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Tom?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention?
I'm going to abstain because I'm a little confused about the process myself.
Okay. Got that, Susan? Okay, but the order, the enforcement order passes as discussed. I see Mr. McGrath back here.
Make a motion on the table.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mike?
During my absence, I read portions, I reviewed most and read portions of a report entitled Coastal Sensitivity to Sea Level Rise, a focus on the Mid-Atlantic region, U.S. Climate Change Science Program's Synthesis and Assessment, Product 4.1, dated January 2009. If the commissioners look at page 49 and 55, it's obviously very focused on the Mid-Atlantic region, which is from Long Island down to one of the Carolinas. So I do not know how it could be interpreted to apply to our project. There is a sentence that is bracketed that says, that talks about horizontal migration. It says, given a setting with low gradient slope, low wave energy, and high sediment supply, e.g. Barnstable Marsh in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, marsh can migrate both inland into uplands and seaward onto sand flats as shallow lagoon fills with sediment, Redfield, 1972. If you decide that this has application, what this is actually saying is there's a chance for this marsh to be bigger, to be greater, and that it might grow in both directions. And furthermore, on page 68, there is a chart that talks about Long Island, New York, Raritan Bay, New York, New Jersey, and it goes all the way down to Virginia Beach, Currituck Sound. And there's a table, and what it talks about is estuarine marsh. And then if you look, it says in response to global warming or increased rise, it has 3 codes: K, meaning keeping pace, M, marginal, or L, loss. And by my count, they seem to be equivalent, meaning they don't know actually what's going to happen. So when I look at what exists on the ground, and if the ocean come up a foot, you might have 98 feet, some distance less than 100, but is it a significant loss of buffer? No. So it just seems to me that this report doesn't really apply to us. If you take the sentence to Barnstable, it actually says the salt marsh might grow bigger. And then if you look at the actual chart that talks about what might happen to these kind of salt marshes, it seems to be inconclusive. But again, if it comes up, this may be 98 feet, 96 feet. To me, that's not a significant loss of buffer, especially given the fact that we have constructed this. And no matter what, I did read, or my staff read all of those orders, and there's a lot of those orders, you don't even mention the 200-foot setback, such as the Solomon one. It was not mentioned. So I stated what I stated.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Mike's that I know that this is for the Mid-Atlantic region, but our region is also experiencing accelerated sea level rise. And I mean, it's our part of the country, which includes from mid-New England down through the Mid-Atlantic. And so that's one comment. So the processes are the same. And the fact is, over time, that buffer, I mean, none of us know what's going to happen. We might be hit with an asteroid, and all of this will be moved. Yes, one more
I
question.
had one question. After looking at the plan, which unfortunately I will admit that you did submit it on time, but we didn't meet last week, so I didn't get it on the Wednesday night that I usually have more time to peruse it, but I did look at it. The little berm that you're putting up, the 3-inch berm, how do you maintain that? 3 inches, right? So when you have a big heavy rain like we have all the time, how does that stay there? Because I would love to know. Because I look at projects, and if it can stay there, I'm gonna tell you, there are so many projects, if that little 3-inch berm works, I can tell a whole bunch of contractors and engineers that it would be very helpful to know the methodology of how that 3-inch berm, I don't even know what it is. Like, is it
What's it
dirt?
made
Is
of?
it cement? Is it, what is it?
No, I showed it to be constructed of earth, so it could be vegetated.
3 inches. So it's gonna be like a little grass.
What I'm trying to do is
So when you
get
hit
the
it with a
water to be
lawnmower?
retained. No, it's not. The overwhelming percentage of it is already gonna be planted, so yes, there's a little bit of it right there, but there's mulch and,
He's retaining it with plant roots.
I know, I work in dirt, and I'm telling you, I don't know how a 3-inch,
Well, I'd be
3-inch
happy to
little
make it-
berm is gonna not be destroyed over time.
oh, it's not supposed to be walked on, how's it?
Oh, my goodness. You know, you have a 6,000 square foot disturbance. I can go down in many places if you, that the exact 6,000 square feet within a year, it'll be 6,020 feet, 6,030 feet, because then everybody pushes their edges back and everything else. I mean, it happens, we know
I'd be
that.
happy to supplement it with one of those,
You know,
edges that we sometimes use.
Like a steel edge or something?
A steel edge or even a vinyl wedge, I've seen a vinyl wedge.
Okay, that's,
We can condition.
we can
Acting
condition
as
that.
a-
That's, but I just had to know what
Has
you
a
were
spine
proposing.
to it, yes. And 3 inches should be the minimum, it could be higher.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't look
All right,
like,
Madam Chair, I would now like to make the same motion I made earlier.
Oh,
That
that's
we
right. We
close
put
this
it
hearing
back
and
on.
take it under
Thank you,
advisement.
Ed.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? Any comments from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Laura. Good night. Okay, vote orders of conditions. Virginia Frisoli, 385 Sherwood Drive, East Falmouth. I know. Can you hand this down? Yes, goes down to Jen.
To Jen, please.
Is this you? Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want it, you can have it.
What was that, Madam Chairman? Can we, skip down to 97, please, Old Dock?
Sure. Linda Spence, 97 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this is, to.
Quorum.
To install it at
Davits at the end of the concrete pier, to support the Zodiac Quorum, Tommy, Mike, Lori, Betsy, Tom, and Courtney. Basically, they had submitted the RDA saying that they wanted to install the davits and they wanted to self-restrict the use. The commission felt that if those types of use restrictions were going to be applied to the project, then a amended order would be an appropriate mechanism to do that. So, what would the board like to do?
I would like to make one comment.
Okay.
That when the stone pier was being reconstructed, it was clear at that time that it was to not have any motorized vessels. It was only to be used for kayaks, canoes, or rowboats to prevent prop dredging. So I don't know how, I know that the old order hasn't been, there are 2 orders out there, one for the house construction and one for the pier. And I believe that neither one of them are, they've got compliance on, am I correct? So I'm just confused. I know that we sent it down the road for the amendment, but it's, again, an 18, I don't know what size boat it is, they had it in the thing. It draws 18 inches or whatever with a 20 horsepower Zodiac. There's a picture in the file of the boat because it was out there. When we make a condition that we can't enforce, I don't know how to do that. And these davits that, you know, they gave us a nice drawing of the davits and how they work. And if they put them on the end and they lower the boat, the davits are in the way. So do they step down into the boat? How do they get into the boat when there's 18 inches of water? I don't know how we're gonna be able to not have that engine doing crop damage, and that it's bone dry there. And I know when it's high tide, it's high tide. When it's low tide, it's mud flats, shellfish mud flats, because that's where all the shellfish will go. So I just don't know how we can prevent them. Are we gonna watch them and make sure that there's, 18 inches of water, and, I don't know.
With the way that I saw it presented, I'm taking a little different tack, was that they're using it as is now, and this helps minimize the walking across the marsh and.
They have a path.
And I understand, but,
With
this
no
is-
marsh.
And this is how I saw how it was being presented, is that it would help the function of it. They're not gonna be able to go out in low tide, whether they have it on the side or on the davit. It's just not gonna be accomplished. It's a, I hate to say it, but it's a common sense thing.
Well, a lot of people don't
Well,
have
I
that
don't,
idea.
I'll tell you what, I don't see this is an old structure. I don't know how long it's been there,
Long
100 years.
And turn of the century.
And I think putting davits turns this structure into a dock, and this does not meet dock regulations.
In a V zone.
And our definition of a dock means the entire structure of any pier, wharf, walkway, bulkhead, or float, and any part thereof, including pilings, ramps, walkways, floats, or tile piling. So, I'm not comfortable because this would basically turn it into a dock.
In a V zone, and it's more structure in a V zone.
Betsy?
Yeah.
When this project was originally brought before us, there's a familiar ring to this davit issue. Was that raised in the beginning and then removed? Am I dreaming?
No, it was supposed to be some kind of,
Telescoping.
rampy thing, or.
Okay.
Yeah. and
Yeah,
we
so
denied
I'm
that.
not
We
dreaming,
denied-
no,
And we denied that.
yeah.
May I?
Unfortunately, no.
No?
No, it's closed. Any other comments?
I'm,
And we denied it because it doesn't meet dock regulations. It can't function, shouldn't be functioning as a dock because there's insufficient water depth there.
and yet, they're still using the boat. And in my train of thought is that they're trying to provide a better storage of the boat seasonally, not year-round, storage of it off-site in the winter, which we can condition. And they're still using the boat.
But the thing is,
But
Tom,
they're turning
there
this
is a
into a dock.
there is a town landing 200 yards down the road that has probably at least 10 Zodiacs on it with engines. So it's not that there's no, that you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's nowhere to put a boat. Everybody else that doesn't have a dock puts their Zodiacs down at the town dock, which is, you can almost see it from there.
Yeah.
So, and I go by it all the time, and there are Zodiacs with 25 horsepowers, 10 horsepowers, little electric motors, all tied up at the West Falmouth landing. So, yes, it would be very convenient to have it right at your doorstep. But the resources are what will be,
And if
and our regulations don't allow it, so.
Any other comments?
It's one of those oddities to me, because if you don't do anything, they're gonna use the same zodiac at the same location at high tide, whether you say nay or nay, it's gonna happen, and the structure that they're putting on the non-dock or dock or whatever here is the impact is de minimis on it's an odd situation, so I can tell you, because whatever we say, the boat's gonna be used, it's gonna be used.
But basically, you're giving blessing for people who are in any situation like this to have that. In fact, I'm just thinking of another issue in Bourne's Pond, where people wanted to put on, they had a seawall, and they wanted to put on, what?
Cleats.
Cleats. But it can't function as a dock because it doesn't meet the dock regulation.
Woods Hole, the food boy, they wanted to do it too, remember?
Right.
And they got denied. Well, we just have to be consistent, I mean, that's all, because then you open up the path
See,
of.
we have to have a positive motion, so I'm making a positive motion for the,
To allow the davits.
correct.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One,
Raise your hands, please.
two, all opposed?
Opposed.
I'm sorry, who moved it?
I did.
Who seconded?
What was the quorum again?
Oh,
Who was the quorum again?
Who
now?
seconded?
I'll second it.
Tommy, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Courtney.
Okay,
Everyone that raised their hand was on the quorum.
okay, so the vote
there
was, so
two
tie
for
vote.
and four against?
2 for it, 4 against it.
Okay, let's move on.
Now that can I ask a question outside? Is there any follow-up recourse or anything, or this is it?
That's it.
That's it.
This is it.
You could reapply for something different, but it'd have to be substantially different in order to
There
be.
can't be a dock at that place.
I-
I'm just asking because I know this client, they're very persuasive, and they ask what's next, and then they're not
The
gonna.
town,
Use the town dock.
the town landing.
Town landing.
So there's no other recourse to come in front of you, or there's no other issues?
The selectmen are town meeting, right?
No,
No.
not the selectmen. We're appointed by the selectmen
Well, he could,
to enforce the Wetlands Protection
I understand
Act.
that, but now he could get the definition of a dock changed
He
at town
can't.
meeting.
The selectman doesn't change
I
the
know, but town
definition of a
meeting
dock.
does. Can-
We
No, no,
change
no,
the
no.
definition of a dock.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
so
Yes, Courtney.
we have we voted against a positive motion, so that represents a denial.
Yes.
The applicant has 2 recourses. One is that he can go back and redesign the project and come back with a different thing. Actually, has 3 recourses. That's one. The second one is that he may say, okay, fine, that's the end of that, move on to the next deal. Or the third option is that if he doesn't like it, he has the recourse in the courts. It's as simple
Right.
as that.
Right.
He doesn't have recourse by going to town hall or anybody else because this is conservation and his appeal is there. It's not in town hall, it's not in town meeting or anything else because these are the wetlands regulations that are determined by the state and by the bylaw.
Correct.
And only the Superior Court can overturn us.
thank you.
That's all, I just wanted to, thank you, appreciate it,
Okay.
have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too. Virginia Fasoli, 385 Sherwood Drive.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this was a small addition with a restoration area out in Sherwood. I'm sorry, Susan.
Yeah. I think I threw that one.
Tommy, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Courtney. It's gonna be those, I believe that, might change. And basically, the addition was in the landward side of the house. They were offering to mitigate an area next to the salt marsh along Great Ponds. The notes that I have, this area is in a velocity zone. They are staying under the 200 square feet that the board likes to see and requires for additional structures in the velocity zone. And the only special condition that I would have is, since those plants are so close to the marsh, that they use more wetland appropriate and salt tolerant.
Absolutely.
You know, the species he has more buffer plantings than are.
They're upland buffer
Yeah,
plantings.
in, you know, layman's terms, if feet are gonna be wet, they have to be able to tolerate
Those
that.
facultative,
Entitled.
right.
So, the staff can absolutely come up with a list of species that they can choose from.
Could I put one other caveat? Now that
Sure.
we're at the 200, we're just under the 200 square feet.
Yep.
Do we put a notation, a flag, or whatever, however you want to describe it? that
That's
This
cumulative.
this is the,
The one bite of the apple and that's it.
Yep.
right, this is what the house now is
Yeah.
in perpetuity.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the orders read and discussed.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Frank Bauer, 145 Seapit Road, Wacoit.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this is the, I just put 145 hour, actually, Mr. Bowers is.
Thomas Landers is a street.
It's the same form, yes, same form. This is the property that Mark has been working on for a long time to try to get the property in compliance. There's been a number of cutting violations and clearing violations and the constructions of little patios throughout the years, and this is a way to, one, comply with an old order of conditions that has an ongoing condition with the deed that a 25-foot buffer be maintained to the top of the coastal bank. That is being reestablished, as well as trying to balance mitigation for the small patio that the property owner constructed, but also allowing them to keep an area of their backyard as usable space. And also there's a component in a small cinder block wall that's collapsing into the salt marsh that they need to fix because it is damaging the marsh. So I think the plan 3.1 covers it, the methodology and how they're proposing to build the wall in the application is thorough enough. We'll just ask that we be notified when they're doing the wall construction.
So you'll incorporate into the order the construction metal, yeah, by reference, yeah.
I believe Mr. McGrath explained to you how they were gonna do that at the hearing.
Correct.
It's not a very large wall, and
No.
the wall.
No, I understand.
If it's that,
Yeah, it's like
it's not
20
even
inches.
2 feet
Yeah.
high, so
Yeah.
it's not a very
Not
large
even 2
wall.
feet.
It's just a good idea when you have a methodology to incorporate it into the order
Oh, I
by
always
reference.
do. If they have a written methodology, I usually
Right.
always incorporate it.
Okay, could I have a motion?
I'll move to accept staff's order as drafted with any changes we've discussed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Paul Nazaro, 68 Eel River Road, Realty Trust, 62 and 68 Eel River Road, East Falmouth.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this form's gonna be different. Tommy, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, Courtney. I guess it wasn't that different. the house out on Eel River. They pulled it back to address the staff's concerns with the limit of work. They, submitted a new plan for with, the portions of the dock that are gonna be, removed.
Okay.
To bring it in accordance, they submitted that old aerial that you wanted,
Was the deck there?
it should be right in the old aerial, it's a big plan, the big aerial, so.
In their folder?
In their file. They eliminated a part of the fill that they were proposing to bring in. Remember, the abutting property is at a much higher grade, like 6 feet higher, and they're proposing to raise that driveway area by 6 feet, although they did reduce the amount of fill that they were bringing in, it still is a substantial amount.
I have to tell you, I am not happy with 900 cubic yards of fill.
And there was a discrepancy, Ms. Porcelli stated it was 900 cubic yards of fill. The abutters, representative stated that they felt based on the calculations, it was still greater than 900.
The reason they're bringing that fill in is so they can
There's that part.
tuck up to the house and get the garage higher.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, the garage they could bring it in and
Well,
do something else. with it.
I understand why they, one of the biggest things that I said,
Listen to this.
I had said at the first hearing is that they're taking multiple structures, they're moving it back, they're condensing all the activities on this site to a much more palatable. When you have this diverse property, and Maureen made mention of it earlier, is the activities and the encroachment on things, and how, when you have a splintered activities across the site.
I agree completely
And
with
this is
that.
how, I'm looking at where they were gonna connect and all that type of thing, and then minimizing it, still a lot of fill to a certain point.
It's a lot of fill in a flood zone.
And the board has to look at whether or not the board feels that the fill is gonna redirect flood water. That is the crux of your land subject to coastal storm flowage regulations. Is this gonna alter the flow characteristics and the flow patterns on the lot?
Ripping up the pavement changes
Yeah.
the flow of the lot.
Oh, no,
You know,
that's-
there's,
I'm just
all these
saying what you have
activities
to
are,
look at.
and I just see them, I really look at this strongly as yes, it is getting filled. I don't see it directing it anywhere other than what's contained on site. I don't see it being a hugely dramatic, it is fill, and it is change, but I see it as,
Well, it
I
depends
hate
on
using the word de
Depends on the
minimis.
whole elevation, but you don't have the elevations on either side, so you don't know whether it's
Well,
gonna.
they did supply us with the photos showing this, and it still goes upgrade on this side. This is that fence line right here with our existing home here, and it does go up here. The one on this side, which we had permitted a year ago,
That
something like that.
actually, according to his grades on the plan, did not bring in any fill. I didn't see the finished grades yet.
Yeah,
on
that,
the
No as-built
compliance.
yet.
yeah,
There's no compliance, so I can't tell for sure if those grades actually did change.
I don't think they
On
changed
68.
drastically. Yeah, I think there's
There was,
a slight,
it didn't look like they were changing them. I mean, that was pretty high up anyway.
and that's where we didn't want the connected point. I just think that the adjustments that they've made, I don't see it being as, I just see a real positive that they moved everything, and they're moving it all in the upward portion. Granted, it is fill, but they're moving it,
They have moved what, upward?
this portion here, moving it that way. All this,
The
taking out
structure
this-
hasn't moved back at all.
not this structure, but taking the other one out,
The other one is further away from the resource anyway.
but it has pavement all the way up to it. You got paved driveway in front of it and alongside of it.
Well, maybe
You know,
this will be
you-
a lesson to us to get aerials prior to all of these hearings, because when you look at these aerials, it's quite evident there's been a lot of work done on that lot. I'm sure without the complement of a permit. And when they come in front of us and they say, we're not moving any closer than this deck or this patio, you look at this, guaranteed. I mean, Mike just looked at it, and that deck is probably never been permitted, but that's what they're basing the whole construction of this structure is on that deck that when you look at the aerials, doesn't exist.
When did it show up?
I have no clue.
Is it on that aerial?
1986, it's not.
No.
Are we sure about that? Did you scale?
No, I
I'm
think,
not
I think,
positive.
no, I
Well, I
think
think we
this
should measure
structure,
that.
no, I think this house,
Is showing
this
this.
structure shows this deck.
Yes, but not that.
No, he thinks that outcrop.
That
is the-
outcrop is
this.
this house. If you take this dimension to this
Okay.
dimension, that dimension is this. This house, this whole
Okay.
thing is bigger, and it's not a great photograph.
No. And
Taken in the morning.
there are pluses and minuses to this project. I mean, the bad one is the fill. There was one out off of Davisville Road that we allowed fill one time, and it created, as the word de minimis. It's de minimis maybe for this lot, but it sometimes isn't so de minimis for the abutter, where everything runs off onto his property. And you have to contain all of your runoff on your lot.
And that does not mean on your lot and then into Mill River Flats.
Exactly.
So the board just, I mean, but that's the crux of your rights. Will this alter the flow pattern, change the drainage characteristics of the lots? That's what you look at when you are looking at filling land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Well, I have two, I mean, I'm probably gonna vote for this, but I have two issues. One is, I don't like a huge altering the topography of the coastal area. But my primary concern in this place doing it is the effect it'll have on neighboring lots. I do believe this lot is higher because that's the flood zone came in here and it swept in front of his house. So,
You mean
if
this is Pavlin, the concerned abutter?
right,
And then they won't have it because they eliminated the fill between the two other lots.
here, so what it would mean is,
They're
you
creating
know,
a swale
swale.
between.
Yeah.
yeah, so more floodwaters will go up that way and that way. Anyway, that's my concern. At
Well,
the time,
you can write it, we can write it as a finding that the board is concerned with the amount of fill.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of trees are being lost because of it, because of the fill. I mean, I know they're replanting a lot of new trees, but they're 3-inch caliper versus, 10 and 18-inch caliper trees.
And it takes 7 years for a tree to grow an inch.
I heard that somewhere.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we need to make a motion?
yeah,
Okay, make a motion for a positive, to accept the order as discussed with the caveats also discussed and the finding.
So, I'm sorry.
Second.
do we want to, any more comments before?
If we're concerned about the amount of fill, which clearly there are concerns here, then if there's a finding that that's a concern, then if we ultimately approve this, then there ought to be a condition that there's a limit on the amount of fill, a finite limit, which we define, and that the applicant would be required to submit proof of it.
Yeah,
Well, that would be the 900 cubic yards, because there is a discrepancy between the two.
well, that's what
submittals
they
that
said
you
they were
have.
going to have, so
They
no
said
more than,
900, no more, so they have to
That's a lot of.
submit
It
their
is a lot
fill
of fill. You need a special permit at a certain level. at a
They
certain
are
level.
going before the zoning board of appeals
Yeah.
for this particular project.
But does that include the fill?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they
because
have to
we
go
have a
before the
limit.
ZBA because of the fill.
That's pretty
So-
crazy.
900 cubic yards, and you want records. Okay.
I mean, they could have
Well,
a garage.
I mean,
They could have a
Well,
Romney garage.
can we,
Drive in and the
why can't
elevator
we
could come up
condition
and
this to have less than 900 cubic yards?
You could condition it to have less than 900 cubic yards, but then you'd be looking at seeing a new plan. But it can happen, absolutely.
One of the big problems, everybody, with fill, and Mike will tell you this, is fill is not like the existing topography there. And when you bring fill in, it's very dense, nothing ever goes through it most of the time. I mean, the fill we get here is clay. I mean, that's what,
Of course, you want to get rid of it. You want to get
you
rid
want
of
to get rid of
any
that
clay.
awful, undesirable
You put it
strip
in
out
for-
septic system clay, and you bring it there and fill it up. Unless we said that it had to be, some porosity or something to the fill, but otherwise, it's just like, I mean, it's gonna be
What are they gonna have on the
dense,
surface?
and it's not gonna perk.
It's the septic system and the gravel.
That's why we have limits in town.
Proposed gravel.
I think the board, if you're
Yeah.
concerned with this, then these are cases that you really need to take a hard stand at the hearing and say, no, you have to change the fill. I think the board sometimes just nod, you say you have concerns with the fill, and that's fine for you to say if you have concerns with the fill, if they choose not to address it. But it's like our old friend, the house in East Falmouth off of Central. You were concerned with the width, so they came back and said, oh, we took 2 feet off of it. Big deal. I mean, 2 feet, is that really gonna change the impact? No. So when you look at something and they have a proposed amount of fill, and they come back and they say, well, we removed 100 cubic yards, when you're looking at this amount of fill, that's not a big difference.
So here's what I suggest. We either,
It'll save you guys from grappling with this during a deliberation stage.
That whole permitting of the fill
we're in the deliberation.
started with Barbara Ritchie and the elevation changes she made on Elm Road. And that wasn't, that was not,
That was
that-
not fill, that was elevation.
yeah, but that was also where the amount of fill brought on a site because of what she did there.
Who was
Yeah.
that?
That was
I'll
a,
show
that was
you
a
where it is when we
contractor
run
who
sometime.
went
Oh, okay.
probably
Oh,
almost
unbelievable.
21 feet in difference
Built
from
a
the
new
benchmark.
landform.
They wanted to, yeah, it is a landform.
Built a new landform.
Instead of, because they had a flat lot, they made it, they just kept going higher and higher with stonework and everything.
Yes.
You get a view.
Yeah, I remember when that was being built, it was, they put
Okay,
they
focus.
put a foundation
But I'm
on
just saying,
grade,
that's
backfilled
why
around
that
it,
was-
built another foundation,
Yeah, that's why
backfilled around it.
they incorporated to regulate certain things. And this is before us, they're not being deceptive on it, they're
No.
explaining what there is on this.
And what they're
And that's why I have a certain comfort
Okay,
level.
I would like to offer a suggestion that we, I'll get to Mike, but I'm saying something now. I would like to offer the suggestion that we approve the project, because we're not, the rest of the project is okay, and that we don't approve the driveway as presented, and they have to come in with an amendment, because we're concerned with that much fill.
That also changes the complexion of the house itself, too.
And they build it the way that's proposed without, I didn't think it was
No.
I thought it was an attached.
No.
I don't have.
Well, it is an attached garage, but they can put the garage underneath, they even said that.
So
They
now
have
they're
room
gonna
for the
have
garage
change
to
the
go underneath.
architectural and
Betsy.
the design of the house. Okay.
Yeah, Mike,
If I could make a suggestion, we put restrictions on the type of fill they're bringing in. There's
Yeah.
a free draining, granular material containing less than 12% fines, which will essentially assert that one, it can be compacted, and two, it
With
needs
less than what,
12% fine.
12% fines. Well-graded
and then the
granular
slopes,
material
the slopes will
containing
take
less
good
than 12%.
vegetation.
And that'll just about guarantee you it's not glacial till. That'll tie that down. Two, that we have a condition that they have a secondary work zone for bay hay bales along
the foot of that slope, so that
Yeah.
if anything during construction does come down, there's a double layer of barrier and becket. And I'm more comfortable with this than some in that because of the existing topography and the neighbor to the south has bought into all this because he's letting come into his
Right.
property anyway. So, I mean, the neighbor who has the potential of being impacted, and I honestly think if
Secondary limit of work width.
secondary along.
And they're building the
top,
driveway.
Along that, along that.
Toe of the-
six-foot
toe of
contour.
the-
Okay, thank
along
you.
the six-
Okay.
Madam
I
Chair.
couldn't see where you were pointing to, Mike.
Mike, you've, given your engineering background, you've said it better than I was on the same track. And I'm going to ask you a question, and that is, presumably there's an organic layer existing there currently. And I think that any condition should require that that organic layer be removed down to before the fill is put on, so that when the soil, when it percolates, it's percolating all the way through down to, in other words, you follow where I'm going. Otherwise, you're putting a dam in.
Yeah.
Okay, so remove. Got it.
And there has to be some
Do
kind
you
of,
have to have notification when you're bringing the fill in? I mean,
yeah,
Well,
no.
documentation-
Yeah, I mean, in other words,
documentation
what I'm saying, Maury, if
what the
you.
soil sample is.
Yeah, and I've seen too many situations where they just come in and dump fill on top of organic material. Now you get, as far as construction, that's poor because you're gonna get settlement. But also from a standpoint of what we're doing, if you're trying to have a compatible grain fill and you want to get reasonable drainage, then you don't want to have an organic layer stuffed in the middle of it because it's gonna act as a barrier
Yep.
toward the percolation into the ground.
Yep, as soon as that decomposes.
Right,
Make
which it will.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like having a layer
Want us to
repeat.
do a site visit when they're doing all the site work, we can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Now, do we also
documentation
want
on the
to, do we
fill.
also want to, I
Amount
guess the other
and
question is,
composition.
the other question is, while we're talking about the fill, do we want to limit the amount of fill?
To 900, that's
To
what the
900.
testimony.
We don't want to go any less than that?
No.
Well, his testimony was 900 to propose the structure that they proposed.
Yeah, 900 is what they're allowed.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. Any other comments, suggestions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Motion
Adjourn?
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Everybody does it when they first get on. You know what? You buy the next round of beers.
I'll guarantee people will show up, I'll do it. That's all it takes. Try it.
You would have done that a long time ago.
I've done it